statement?
That would make sense.
Yeah, but if you just want to just like quickly introduce, I guess if you want to just jump into the opening statement, you can. But
You want me to introduce myself? Okay. Let me turn off my push to talk. It kind of lags behind. All right.
Ooh, I know what I need.
Right. Okay. Hello? Hello?
How's it going?
Yeah, it's all right. What, do you want me to introduce myself first?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah, just briefly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interlocutor, and I'm a proponent of the presuppositional apologetic methodology. I'm 18 years old. I recently graduated high school, and that's all I'd say. If you're
cool. I'm TJump, YouTube
Yeah, so I
apologist.
figured.
I'll just give I'm TJump. You can check my YouTube channel, youtube.com/TJump. I do debates with professors and philosophers on reasons to believe in God. Check out my YouTube channel.
all
right, sounds good. I figured, not sure if you'd agree to a more precise format, but I guess if you just start with opening statements and then maybe move into just back and forth.
Oh, like some 2-minute opening statement.
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so as I stated before, I'm an adherent to the presuppositional apologetic methodology, and that's all I really have to say. You get the...
Can you describe that in a little more detail? What is presuppositional apologetics?
Yeah, presuppositional apologetics is that nothing can be invoked without asserting God as a precondition.
What do you mean invoked?
So there cannot be any truth. What?
What do you mean by invoked? Like just used in a sentence or something?
Appealed to. Appealed to in a true manner.
Okay, so I think, therefore I am. I know I exist. I didn't presuppose God.
What? Oh, so we're going right into the debate, informal?
I'm sure I can do my opening too. I'm an atheist, by which I mean I believe there are no reasons to believe in a God. There's absolutely no evidence or argument that indicates a God whatsoever, and this is demonstrable and accepted in the consensus of every academic field. So I can start with, I think, therefore I am. I don't presuppose a God, but I still know I exist without presupposing a God. Doesn't that seem to refute your idea that you need to presuppose a God to know things? Are you there? Still there? Did you hear me?
Seems like you might be lagging. I'm not sure.
Is background noise something?
Shocker.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, now
Hello?
we can hear you.
Is my phone lagging behind?
All right, yeah, now I can hear you. Now we're good.
Yeah, can you reassert your opening statement? I didn't hear everything. I don't have a very stable environment to talk in. There's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So
yeah, just restate it.
My opening statement was that I'm an atheist, by which I mean I believe there are no reasons to believe in a God, no evidence or argument that indicate the existence of a God, and this is demonstrable in many ways and it's accepted by the consensus in every academic field. And then I asked you, my argument is I think, therefore I am. I can know I exist without ever invoking a God. Doesn't that refute your position?
No, so what you're doing is you're trying to invoke the cogito ergo sum as some sort of deductive inference, right?
No.
So asserting the cogito ergo sum doesn't falsify that God acts as a precondition for the satisfaction of its truth condition or truth value or whatever you want to call it, right?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean.
Really going.
I'm not sure what you mean, because there's different versions of presuppositionalism. One is that you can't make any knowledge claim without believing in a God. So if you don't believe in a God, you can't actually say something, you know something at all. And there's another one that you can't have knowledge unless God exists. So it's kind of like the moral argument where atheists can be moral because God gives them the moral whatever.
For the presuppositionalist would say both.
Well, there's different presuppositionalists.
The presuppositionalist
so
would say that
there's
God
multiple.
is required for like any.
So again,
I mean, there's different lines of argumentation within presuppositionalism, such as the presuppositionalist would hold that God is required for like any condition of that sort to be satisfied.
Right, that's a kind of presuppositionalism. I've debated like dozens of presups. There's lots of different kinds of presuppositionalism.
What? I can't. You're lagging out. Hello?
Can everyone else hear me fine, or is it just him?
Hello?
It's not.
There's like some connection. There's some connection issue. I'm not trying to distract.
Yeah, that's fine. We can hear each other fine.
Tom, you sound fine.
I'm having some connection issue for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. So
maybe try reconnecting.
Yeah, try to leave and reconnect if you can. Yeah, he sounds like he's using a phone or something. Oink. Also a text chat, right? There we go. Oh.
Interlock, you still there?
Can you message him, see if he can reconnect? This is the Enlightenment Discord.
Yes.
On my chat too, and they were asking which Discord this is.
Okay. We'll just give him a minute or so and see what's going on. Otherwise, we may have to.
We just open up the Q&A while waiting or whatever. Anybody else got any questions or whatever?
Yeah. If anyone wants to.
Yeah, Orson asked, are you an atheist or agnostic? I am an atheist, but again, atheism and agnosticism are not mutually exclusive. It depends on how you define atheism. So I define atheism as there's no reason to believe. So you can be an atheist and an agnostic at the same time, kind of like that chart thing that many other atheists use. So the philosophical definition of atheism, which is used specifically to refer to a secondary position, like you're referring to someone else's position, doesn't apply to any individual. Like if I get any individual gets to define their position however they want. So I can say I'm an atheist, by which I mean, and then that is the definition of atheism. The same applies to the theist position. Like they say, I define faith as a belief based on trust or whatever, with a ridiculous definition. If that's how they define faith, well, then you have to use their definition when describing their position. Otherwise, it's a straw man. So whatever position you're using, whatever definition you're using to describe your position is the correct definition.
Yeah, so I guess we could just, sorry to interject here. I guess we can just switch on to the Q&A directly because, I don't know, I'm trying to text a guy and he doesn't seem to be answering or call or any of the calls. So
Sure. Let me know if you hear from him. We can jump back in. Until then, I'll just answer questions or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I guess this
MJPC.
turned out to be an AMA then. So yeah, just
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So MJPC88 asked, have you encountered many genuine transcendental arguments, or do most supposed transcendental arguments come off as variants of the cosmological or ontological arguments? Transcendental arguments are separate from the ontological and cosmological. Transcendental arguments are essentially arguing that there is something that is beyond the physical, like some kind of thing that exists, and in order for that thing to exist, it can't come from the physical. So it's more of a composition division fallacy. It's like consciousness cannot come from non-consciousness, logic cannot come from material things, and they just list all of the big philosophical problems and say, you can't answer these, God can answer these, therefore God. That's the transcendental argument in a nutshell. So it's not quite the same as the cosmological or ontological, but I did watch Alex Malpass's review of Jay Dyer. Jay Dyer is an idiot, by the way. You can quote me on that one. And he said that Jay Dyer's argument was a kind of version of the cosmological, but that isn't actually the case, because Malpass didn't quite understand Jay's argument. Jay's argument is just listing all of the big problems in philosophy, saying God can answer these, your philosophy can't, therefore God. That's Jay's argument. That's the transcendental argument. G.I. Jew Calvinist. How do you account for the I and I think therefore I am? I is just referring to the thinking. So the common criticism that Bertrand Russell used against the cogito ergo sum was that I cannot mean an ontology. So Descartes used the I to argue for dualism, Cartesian dualism, where he said the I was referring to a soul kind of a thing, and that was in addition to the material thing, where Bertrand Russell said, well, no, you can't do that because the I then presupposes the soul in Descartes' argument. But my argument doesn't do that. My argument is just specifically stating the I is the thinking. So I have this qualia experience that is the I, and there's nothing more to it. So mine doesn't presuppose or fall into the category of Descartes or Bertrand Russell's criticism. Orson, do you hold positive claims against gods and theism? Some versions of gods, yes. Some versions of gods, no. Since God is a rather ambiguous term, it can mean whatever you want it to. You can just define nature as God. I mean, I clearly wouldn't have any problem with that as a naturalist. But certain kinds of gods are definitely contradictory, self-contradictory, and they could not exist. Like the Christian gods, Abrahamic gods, definitely for sure are contradictory. Larry Hoover, are you a synthetic moral naturalist or an analytic moral naturalist? Synthetic, probably, because the synthetic analytic distinction is kind of iffy. It's only accepted by about 50% of philosophers, so it isn't actually necessarily a true distinction. But if what you mean is do I think moral naturalism is something that comes from knowing about it a priori, or knowing about it a posteriori is a reference to the world, I think it's a reference to the world. I don't think it's a priori knowledge. I think it's a posteriori knowledge. TJump Goose 50 asks, what do you think about the evolutionary argument against naturalism? Plantinga's evolutionary argument against naturalism is essentially saying that because evolution selects for survivability rather than truth, and all of our beliefs could be false, they're just something that helps us benefit survival. And so this supposedly undercuts all of our beliefs that would be founded from evolutionary mechanisms, but that's false. There's obviously certain truths that evolution cannot make you believe, even if it was beneficial to survival. For example, like evolution can't make you imagine a round square. It's just not possible for you to do that. No matter how much evolution wants to do it, no matter how beneficial to survival it may be, it is impossible for evolution to give you the idea of a round square in your head. You literally cannot visualize it because it's impossible. So evolution is limited by truth, and so it will necessarily give you some truths no matter what, like A equals A, or laws of logic, laws of math, squares can't be round or whatever. And so evolution, his argument is incorrect because it is not the case that evolution can give you any belief you want just because it's beneficial to survival. It's limited to giving you true beliefs because in certain instances, true beliefs do benefit survival. Let's say yes. TJump, would you ever...
I'm just kidding. Sorry to interrupt, TJump, but I'm just getting word that Interlocutor is back in the room. We're just going to maybe just ask him to kind of speak into the mic, because he also said he has a better mic, so maybe just unmute him. I think he can... Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Is my mic better?
Yes, much better.
Yeah. Yes,
all
yes,
right.
right.
I switched to a
So
laptop.
I guess maybe we could sort of restart this. It kind of makes more sense to go from the beginning, not from like the introduction, but just like I guess.
I got it. Let's just start from where we.
Yeah, you said you're a
sure.
presuppositionalist, and so you said, which means that
so you claim what?
So you mean you can't make certain kinds of claims without invoking a god of some kind, and my claim is that I think, therefore I am, and I can make that claim without invoking a god.
You appeal to the cogito ergo sum.
Yep.
As if it can be so like we can make some sort of like biconditional statement, right? Like A if and only if, B A therefore B, right?
Well, I can make any kinds of. But the statement is irrelevant.
No, wait, come on. I'm using it as an example.
Okay.
Right? So what you're attempting to argue that because it can be justified without its precondition being appealed to in like some sort of syllogism, right? That is independent of like the precondition that's being invoked, right?
No.
That seems like a sort of that seems like a sort of fallacy.
Right? No. The cogito ergo sum isn't true because of the argument. It's a descriptive of a thing that exists. You have qualia experience, and then
of a thing that. There are certain preconditions.
Just let me just articulate the argument a little bit more. So, we have this qualia experience. This is a brute fact that is sufficient on its own, and then I make the cogito ergo sum to describe that brute fact. So I have this qualia experience, and I think therefore I am is simply a descriptive language I'm using to describe the fact that I exist, nothing more.
I get it. But the cogito ergo sum has certain conditions that must be satisfied within the premise, or like the inference, or whatever you want to call it, right?
What do you mean? Like the conditions of the statement are irrelevant because it's just describing a fact of reality. So
it has content expressed within it that must be satisfied for it to be true.
No, what do you mean? So if I can change the language any way I want, it will never not be true. Like, for example, I will always exist.
Because language is descriptive of like conceptual content, right?
Language is descriptive of reality. So that's the difference, is that if it's not just descriptive of the conceptual content, it's describing something that exists in reality, namely my qualia experience. So that's the part that it doesn't matter what I use the word for.
So there's like, the content of the propositions instantiated. That's my point, right?
I don't understand your point. Like, I can make up the language after the experience. The experience is still true. So I have the experience, which is true.
No, but like the argument, again, the argument is like hinged on two conditions. There has to be a thought, and there has to be something conscious for it to be true, right?
Right. That would be the qualia experience. So that's necessarily the case.
So is the proposition necessarily true?
If for the speaker, yes.
For the speaker, yes. So, but that doesn't. So you're saying it's subjectively necessarily true?
No, I'm saying that I have this qualia experience. That is necessarily true. This is a brute fact. It can't ever not be the case. I'm having this experience right now.
So one of the conditions that must be satisfied for the proposition to be true is that there has to be like a consciousness of some sort. So proposition, yes. There has to be some present experience or some qualia, or whatever you want to call it.
Which is the case. I can prove necessarily that's the case because I'm experiencing it right now.
So the proposition is true if and only if there's some form of experience. So if the
it's not if. It's not no. So there's no if statement here. I am literally having qualia experience right now. That is a necessary description of the actual state of reality.
If you're not having qualia experience, then the proposition would be false. Would you
but
agree?
I am, so it doesn't matter. So it's not contingently true. It is necessarily the case.
It's not contingently true. It's necessarily the case.
Right.
So it's true if and only if there's some qualia.
There's no if. There's no if. It is necessarily the case that I am at this point in time experiencing qualia.
But it's that doesn't. Yeah, you're just running away.
No. The same thing applies to God. If God exists, that's only if the case if God exists. So it's if and only if God exists, well, then God exists. You're just saying the same thing twice. So because I have qualia experience, obviously it's only the case I'm having qualia experience.
So the proposition necessarily follows from you having qualia experience. Again, so it's if and only if. It's a necessary condition for it being true.
No, again, wrong.
Yeah.
So again,
being dishonest.
The same thing applies to God. The same thing applies to God. So God only exists if and only if God exists. So you're just saying the same thing over again. If and only if I have quality experience, then I have quality experience. You're just saying the proposition is irrelevant.
Proposition to be like some ontological tautology for quality and experience.
Right, that's exactly what it is.
Right.
It's just describing the fact that I have quality experience. So my quality experience is an ontological fact.
If it describes that, so the proposition is like hinged on some like instantiated state of affair, right? That's
All
what I'm saying.
propositions are. That's what truth means. Truth is correspondence to reality.
So you conceded my point. There's some if and only if factor, right?
No, because that also applies to God. So that doesn't work. So God only exists if and only if God exists. That's just
sure, but that's a true statement, anyways.
So is I think therefore I am. So your argument fails.
Yeah, it doesn't fail. If I think therefore I am has to comport to like some like instantiated state of affair, and it's necessarily true, then it has to comport to some necessarily true instantiated state of affair, right?
Which is the same as the God exists statement. So there's
no
difference.
What I'm saying is that if it's a necessarily true proposition, then it can only be true if a necessary mind exists, right?
You haven't supported that, so I've again demonstrated that argument does not work because I can apply it to your God statement. So you've demonstrated no difference between the two arguments.
No, yeah, you're being dishonest at this.
No,
point.
I'm just
completely different.
This is just basic facts of philosophy. So
now you're assuming some like form of correspondence theory. Like
no, I don't. I don't. That's not part of the argument. That's just a description of philosophy. So not part of the argument.
Description of philosophy. How is it a description of philosophy?
I'm using facts from philosophy to show you why you're wrong about your assertion of the argument, but that isn't. But wait up. So I'm showing you other facts about philosophy that show you why your arguments make no sense. But those other things don't have anything to do with my argument. So you can't say, "Oh, you're bringing in other parts of philosophy, therefore your original argument is wrong." Those have nothing to do with my original argument.
Your argument is like hinged on some like correspondence theory. If you're
that's incorrect. Nope, correspondence is again just descriptive, so it's not hinged on that at all.
Some ontological like description isn't like the same as like some formal truth, right?
Right.
Two completely things.
Right.
Obviously.
So like I don't get what you're getting at.
So again, it's a descriptive statement. There is this fact of reality. This is necessarily the case. This cannot ever not be the case. It's always going to be the case. I have quality experience.
Cannot not be the case. So I think therefore I am cannot not be the case.
The fact that I have quality experience cannot not be the case because it is literally the case right now. So it's,
or like some some Neoplatonists could reverse it on you and like argue that they're just participating in some mental state.
No, they couldn't. They can try. They're not.
Yes, they could.
No, they can't.
Yeah, the necessary truth value of that proposition is.
Well, again, you keep bringing up propositions. Propositions are irrelevant here. They're just descriptive. So the proposition doesn't make a difference.
Stop. Some necessarily mental state grounded in a necessary mind, right?
What?
Like the argument collapses on your review. Yeah.
No, again,
you
the argument you keep bringing up
on
the
this.
language and confusing the language with the actual fact.
I'm not confusing the language. I'm just invoking like some like form of like predicational reference.
That's exactly confusing the language. It's called confusing the map with the territory fallacy. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt.
To the conceptual content of the proposition being conveyed.
That's the language. That's by definition. Stop. You need to stop. You need to stop and let me finish the argument. So
you operate under a completely different.
I'm just going to get you muted, or you're going to have to stop. You're going to have to stop talking, or I'm going to mute you. So what you're saying is the content of the language of the logic used in the argument is predicated on the logic, which makes no difference to the argument. It's irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. Anything reference, stop. So any reference to propositions, any reference to the organization of the logic, all of that is simply descriptive language of the fact. If in order to make your argument work, what you have to do is you have to show I don't exist, because as long as I exist, that is sufficient to justify everything off of that basis.
No.
How so?
No, your entire argument is like hinged on you
argument
acting
again.
under some, like,
you brought up argument again.
Stop. I'm answering you. We have completely different metaphysical frameworks that we operate under, right?
Right.
So I wouldn't hold that like linguistical term vocab are the same thing as like conceptual properties and other such things. Conceptual content is something immaterial that we have to use linguistics to communicate. right?
Right.
Like I really don't understand what you're saying if that's the case.
The language
How-
doesn't
how
affect
am I
reality.
confused?
So do you understand that language has no effect on reality? Like I can say that is a tree, and then I can
But
say it in Japanese.
The instantiated content of the proposition has
No, it has no
some
effect on reality. There's no part of
there
the
being a thought and there being a thinker is instantiated, right?
again. So no part of the proposition, no way you can change the language can ever affect reality. You can't change the proposition and make things exist or not exist. The language is purely descriptive. The language has nothing to do with reality.
Okay. The language is descriptive, right?
Right.
It's descriptive of two conditions that have to be satisfied.
It
right?
describes reality. It's as simple as that. No conditions. It describes reality.
The argument is essentially that the doubter can't doubt that they're doubting, right? Like it's
No,
some
you
sort
can
of
doubt.
like
I don't care. I don't care about the doubting. That's irrelevant.
I'm saying if the doubter doubted that they were doubting, it would lead to some absurd paradox.
No, I don't care. You can do that. That's fine with me. It doesn't make a difference.
But this argument like originates like within Augustine's writings.
No, it doesn't. But so I don't actually care about that.
Read on.
No, I have read it, so I know more about philosophy than you. The problem here is that
I've read it too.
Stop interrupting. Stop interrupting.
I don't know anything.
So stop. So again, the argument here, stop. I'm going to just have you muted if you don't stop. You got to let me finish the argument. So again, there is a fact about reality. I have quality experience. That fact I can then use to gain knowledge. It doesn't matter. I never referenced God in there one way. So in order for your statement to be true, you have to show how I can't gain knowledge from the fact I exist. Like you have to prove I can't do it, but I just did.
I could, but
Go for it.
I'm going to address the first assertion that you made, right? No, it's not necessarily like this proposition.
Which one's the first assertion?
Like, like that. Okay, so this notion that like you as like the subject have to have like some sort of like present experience of your own thought, right? That's not necessarily true. Like you could have some like awareness of some other thought that you're participating in, right?
Sure, but that isn't relevant to my argument. Like it's not
but
necessarily the case.
Like what I'm saying is like a Neoplatonist could simply argue that they're like some subjective recipient of a necessary mental state, right?
It would still exist, so the argument would still be true.
What would be the case is that the mental state infused into the subjective recipient, if this proposition, right, is necessarily true and its content is necessarily instantiated, then there would have to be some necessary mind for it to hold, right? That's the issue.
No, there just has to be a mind that exists. It could be a contingent mind, but as long as it exists in reality, then it's a necessary truth of reality.
You can't ground a necessary truth in a contingent mind. That's literally
no. You ground a necessary truth in reality. So it is a fact of reality. The Earth is round. That is a necessary truth at this time.
Reality of a necessary mind. I don't know why you're assuming the reality of a necessary mind, but I don't know why you're assuming this correspondence theory in the first place.
It's irrelevant. Again, that's background knowledge irrelevant to the argument. So again,
stop. Do you believe that truth exists?
No, truth is a descriptive property of sentences.
So can certain truths be true if other truths aren't true? Like,
that doesn't
can
make
the
any
law
sense.
of non-contradiction? Can the law of non-contradiction be true if the law of identity isn't true in the first place?
Depending on which logic you use, yes.
How would you identify that?
You would just use a different language, so you can just pick whichever one you want. It's like using English or Japanese. Like they both work.
No, that's just a word concept fallacy. It doesn't actually.
No, logic is by definition a language. Just the first sentence of Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
Why is logic a language could be descriptive of logic, but logic could be expressed in any language.
Stanford.
Sure we have.
Stop. Wait. Let me answer your question here. So Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on classical logic, line 1, logic is a formal and semantic language. It's just a fact. Logic is a language, nothing more.
Okay. No one is denying, right? No one is denying that there is meta language and that we use like certain like forms of linguistics to like communicate like logical concepts.
No, I'm saying logic as itself is nothing but a language. Logic is literally nothing but a language.
That literally doesn't make sense.
That's literally the first line of Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on logic.
That's just an appeal to authority. like, are you saying it's
Okay,
true
wait.
because it's
So appeals to authority are not fallacious if they're actual authority, so it's not a fallacy. Stanford Encyclopedia Philosophy on Fallacies, number 9.
Do you know what a fallacy? Do you know what a fallacy is?
A logical form, either an informal or formal fallacy, one that is of issue with the validity and the order of the argument, or one that is issue with the premises and its truth.
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about the premises, right? So
okay.
Yeah, please explain like what a fallacy is. Like within a syllogism, what would be a fallacy?
If the conclusion does not follow from the premises.
Yeah. Okay. So how is that not a fallacy?
That's a formal fallacy, which
how does the conclusion? Okay. How does the conclusion that it's true follow from the premise that Stanford Encyclopedia says it's true?
It's an appeal to authority isn't a formal fallacy. It's an informal fallacy if you tried to, if they're a false authority, and it's not because it's simply using induction.
It doesn't matter. It's still a fallacy because it doesn't
no, because it's not a deductive argument. You don't understand.
So it's not. So it's not a deductive argument then.
Correct.
Yeah, I understand the an informal fallacy.
You
sure,
clearly don't. Clearly don't. I mean, so.
I do, but
so
like
I have no interest to just educate you on basic philosophy. I'm just going to read you the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
No, I just don't. I understand basic philosophy.
Clearly
No, I don't think like some like methodological inductionism is like viable.
I don't care what you think.
Like you need.
Like so I'm just gonna, if you're just gonna question basic fallacies, I'm just going to read to you. Stop interrupting.
Do you know what the basic problem of induction is?
Yes, I do, and it doesn't in any way apply to this. So I'm just going to read to you.
How does it follow?
So, no, stop. So again, this is not up to you. I don't care what your opinion is on basic philosophy 101. If you want to disagree with that, then go challenge the philosophers, go publish papers. The argument, stop interrupting. So the ad verecundium fallacy concerns appeals to authority and expertise. Fundamentally, the fallacy involves accepting as evidence for a proposition the pronouncement of someone who is taken to be an authority but is not a real authority. That's it. So if it's real authority, it counts as evidence. It's just that simple. If you have an objection with that, you can take it up with them and go try to publish a paper.
You're using an appeal to authority, but you're using an appeal to authority to argue that appeal to authority isn't an appeal to authority.
That's great. Okay. If you want to challenge that, you can have fun publishing papers on that. But I'm just going to go with the authorities who know philosophy, and you don't.
That's pretty ridiculous. That seems like.
It just saves time because I have no interest in educating you on basic philosophy. So if you want to challenge that, you can go into the history, start trying to write a paper, but I don't care.
You should be educated on basic philosophy, dude.
I am. I just read you a published journal on philosophy.
You made an appeal to authority.
I just read you a published journal on philosophy.
You made a circular argument.
No, I didn't. I just read you a journal on philosophy.
Argue that it is. You made an appeal to authority.
So again, you keep using that, but you don't know what an appeal to authority is. I just read you what an appeal to authority is.
What an appeal to authority is.
I just read it to you from an academic journal. So if you want to challenge basic philosophy,
guys, let's just go back to let's not get back in the meta. Let's just go back to the argument. So, I guess wherever you guys were left off, just
correspondence theory.
Yeah, again, so that's just basic philosophy. So you can take that up with the philosophers. It doesn't not relevant to my argument.
Why do you? Okay, he said we should stop talking about it, but I mean, I think that you're clearly wrong on that issue. But why do you believe that all truths have to comport to some instantiation? First of all,
truth by definition is whether or not a sentence corresponds to reality.
Why? By
definition. We've defined it that way.
So you're just like appealing to like some axiom.
Definition. So I start with. Let me see if I can try to answer. So I start with quality experience. I have a quality experience. This is a fact of a reality. So it is a necessary truth. It's just at time t, this is the case. That is a necessary truth. And then I can say, wait.
I already responded to this argument.
I don't care what you think you responded to. So I start with quality experience, which is a completely justifiable starting point that everyone in philosophy accepts. And then I can create a language called logic, and truth is a property of that language. It is just a descriptive thing I've made up. And if these words I'm using correspond to reality, then it is a true sentence. So truth.
You just made a definition. I really don't care. It's not a deductive argument. You just postulated
arguments again just languages. So they are just definitions. So they don't actually help you in any way.
Arguments are inferential processes.
Logic
are used to languages are used as means to communicate.
Logic
concepts.
is a language. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, classical logic, very first sentence. So arguments are also a language.
That's just an appeal to authority. You really
which I already proved you wrong on. So you can just read the authorities on that. I don't care what your opinion on this. You can have your head up your ass all you want, but you lose immediately on this point.
No, the conclusion in the syllogism doesn't.
I didn't bring a syllogism, so that doesn't help your argument. So again,
like what I'm saying is that
I don't care what you're saying.
Even know
I don't care what you're saying on this. So I'm just going to say, here is what the philosophers say. If you want to challenge philosophy, go do it somebody else. I don't care. I'm not going to try and educate you on basic philosophy. Here's a fact. This is what an argument of authority is in a philosophy. And if you disagree with that, go take it up with them. I don't care what your opinion is, but I'm going to tell you what it is. And then that is the fact of the matter.
Appeal to authority, therefore appeal to authority.
I don't care what your opinion on this is. If you want to take it up with the philosophers, go do it. That's fine. This is just what an argument from authority is in philosophy.
Just read it out one more time. I don't see the point of discussing this.
Okay.
You've just evaded my objection. So.
No, there's no objection there. Like if you want to object to basic philosophy, take it up with the entire field of philosophy. I'm not here to defend every premise in philosophy against you. It's not my position. This is just the position of all the philosophers. So if you want to question their position, go debate them.
Maybe I can sort of help this kind of get steered in a better direction.
Let's get back to his correspondence theory of truth.
Well, no, again, so that's also not part of my argument.
If I could just add,
doesn't exist, then you said that truths. So if you say truth doesn't exist, you're saying that truths don't comport to other truths, which is incoherent.
Well, your sentence is incoherent, but I'm saying truth is a property of sentences and whether a sentence corresponds to reality.
How is it an incoherent statement?
Well, most of what you said is incoherent. You just don't know what the words mean in philosophy. Truth in correspondence. Truth in correspondence is whether or not a sentence corresponds to reality. There's no like truth of truth. What are you even saying there? It doesn't make any sense. Go ahead. You saying something? Did you cut out?
Interlocutor, are you still there? You appear to have lost him.
Yep, it looks like it. Let's go back to the questions. Orson asks, naturalist, how do you respond to the rule following argument? I do not know the rule following argument off the top of my head, but you could just probably Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy it. Rule following argument. Wittgenstein's private language.
A bit complex to get into now.
Yeah, Wittgenstein's private language doesn't actually work. The way language originated was simply from a reference to the external world. So meaning is essentially, again, the same as the correspondence theory of if the statement that we made up, we just make up a sound or whatever. If that statement corresponds to something in reality, then it's true by definition. So meaning is, again, just whether or not those sentences can describe something in reality or not, and which is totally up to us. It's subjective. And some of them, like unicorns, don't, for example. Orson asked if they can
Interlocutor over there.
Okay, hey. I was using my phone as a hotspot for the laptop and it ran out of battery, so I had to turn back on the Wi-Fi now. So, what is my amp by my fixed mic? Okay, so yeah, so how does your model account for like conceptual truth?
You're breaking up.
I wasn't here to hear your response.
You're breaking up. We couldn't hear you. What was your question?
How does your model of truth?
You're still breaking up.
Hello?
You're still breaking up.
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear some of what you
No,
said.
you're lagging and breaking up.
I think what you said was, how does my model account for conceptual truth or something like that? So logic is a language that describes reality, like A equals A, reality is reality. And then from those logical truths, we can then derive other things that would be true about conceptual concepts that are based on those things in reality. That would be how we get conceptual truths.
Based on those. Yeah, but that doesn't really address it, because like there are certain issues that would follow from it, such as truths not comporting to other truths.
That doesn't make any sense.
Like,
so
if like the content of the truth doesn't like have any, yeah, if the content of the truth doesn't like have any like instantiatory basis, right? Then you would have to say it's false by definition.
no. So I can say Klingons are Klingons.
Yeah.
I can say Klingons are Klingons. That's a fact, but there is no Klingon in reality. The fact of the matter is simply. What?
So you rejected correspondence theory?
No, correspondence theory does account for those things perfectly well.
I don't see how correspondence theory accounts for conceptual truths.
Do you have an idea in your head?
You're just begging the question.
No, you have an idea in your head, and that idea in your head is the idea in your head that you are referring to.
Do you believe ideas exist?
What?
Do you believe ideas exist?
Yes, they're literal physical things in your head.
Ideas are physical things.
Yes, they are literal physical.
So like, is every idea?
Yes.
Okay, so do you like have any like modal perspective?
Modal perspective? I have no idea what you're asking.
Like what is your like position on modality? Like when it comes
modal
to like,
logic, the arguments for possibility and necessity, like it's just a conceptual model. It doesn't have anything to do with like possible worlds are just ideas in our head and nothing more.
I'm asking like, which model do you adhere to?
Of modal logic? None of them. It's just a model. I don't use it for anything. Like I don't use Japanese.
You're not a modal. No, but the modal possibilities. The modal possibilities would posit that there's only actual world and that all other possible worlds are merely concepts.
I don't care which kind of modal logic people use. It's just a language. It doesn't matter.
Like you're not going to answer the question. Whatever.
No, I'm saying I don't use modal logic.
According to your,
I don't care.
According to your view, that ideas are like concepts are physical things. Like according to the law of identity of non-discernibles or indiscernibles, what differentiates the instantiated concept of a thing from like the instantiated idea in the mind? Like what differentiates a concept being instantiated if concepts are physical?
Concepts are physical, so it's just the similarity between the different physical things. Like a triangle, there is no such thing as a universal triangle. As a,
I'm not asking for your principle. I'm not asking for your principle of differentiation. Right?
That's what you just asked for. You said, "How do you differentiate?"
If you have a concept in your mind, it's instantiated. That would literally mean the concept is instantiated. So
what you're saying makes no sense. So again, it's just an idea is a thing in your head. The ideas don't actually exist in reality independent of your head. They're just ideas. But what you're saying makes literally no sense.
So you're saying the content of the idea. So you're saying, okay, so you're saying the content of the idea doesn't exist, but the idea in and of itself exists.
The idea is literally a physical thing in your brain about having to do with neurons and biochemical processes. That is literally the idea.
And if the idea is instantiated,
like
what you're differentiates?
Saying, what you're saying doesn't make sense. An idea is instantiated when it is the neurons in the brain. That is literally the same thing. If you're asking what is the idea as it is in reality, independent of the brain,
you're literally saying that the idea is instantiated within your worldview, because
Yes,
there isn't
the
something
idea
that can be physical
is
and
a physical thing.
non-instantiated,
The
right?
idea literally
So
is the
I don't really
neurons.
Yes, the idea.
So there is just the neurons in your
No, but
brain, and that
each and
combination is the
each and
idea.
every physical thing, each and every physical thing. Are you a bundle theorist?
I'm not going to talk about other people's theories. I don't care about other people's theories. I'm not going to try to conform to other models. My model is my model.
I want to have a clarification. Dude, I want to have a clarification on your position.
My position is my
What
position.
is your
So it's not other
metaphysics?
theories. So
No.
don't ask about other people's theories. It's my position.
That's just a tautology. It doesn't really say anything.
No. You keep asking, does my model correspond to some other people's models? Like, I don't care about other people's models. Don't ask about other people's models. Like, is it a bundle theory? It's like, I don't know. I don't care about their theory. I haven't looked into it enough to know.
Okay, so you don't know if it's a bundle theory. Okay, whatever. I really don't care. So for something to be instantiated, it would have to exemplify all of its properties in concept, right?
No.
So we have like the form of a thing, and then we have the instantiated properties of a thing, right? It would instantiate some like conceptual set of properties.
No, this is all just your made up conceptual
what
principles that have nothing to do with anything. I don't
It's a
care.
physical idea from it.
There is only
Dude,
physical ideas.
you're just fleeing from me, dude.
No. You're just making up your own criteria that you want answers for that have nothing to do with my model. Like, I don't care what your criteria are.
Do you really not understand? Do you really not understand my argument?
No, I do understand your argument. The problem is that you don't. You've made up your own little model of reality, and you want to try to say, well, how does yours?
Have you read Ed Fraser's objection to embodied concepts before?
Yes, and
like a
Ed
pretty
Fraser's
simple
nonsense is his model that no one accepts in philosophy. No one cares what his model is. His model is not reality. It's just his model.
Yeah, it's his
language.
model. Saying it's his model. Like you don't understand like basic like scholastic metaphysics, dude.
No, I do. Again, everyone in philosophy rejects his position because it's just his model. There's no evidence to support he's right about anything. It's just a model he's made up, just like everyone else.
You literally don't understand basic scholastic metaphysics.
No, I do. I understand it's a made up thing.
Asked
It's
you-
a made up language.
It's a made up language. Okay.
Correct.
I literally asked you the question, what instantiates, what's the difference between instantiated concept X and physical concept X in the mind if concept is physically instantiated?
You just
What's the
that's a
difference?
tautology. If there is a physical concept and it's being instantiated, then that is an instantiation of the physical concept. Like, wow.
Exactly. So concept unicorn is instantiated. Unicorn exists.
Right. You have an idea of a unicorn, and that physical
The only
idea
principle
exists.
of differentiation is the fact that one is material and the other isn't.
No, they're both material. You literally just asked, what is a physical instantiation of a physical
Hello?
object?
Like they're both. Do you understand the principle?
No. So
of
I
identity of
understand everything about
indiscernibles?
philosophy better than you. Okay, what you're saying doesn't make sense. You aren't even representing Fraser's position correctly. You don't understand
No.
it. So what you're asking doesn't make sense. What you're
Yes, I
trying to
am.
ask is, how do you differentiate between an idea existing in a mind and an idea existing outside of a mind? And you don't, because they're the same thing. It's possible there could be an idea outside of a mind. We have no evidence of that at this time.
That's literally incoherent.
No. What I
If
said
it's
was
in the mind,
coherent.
then it can't be outside of it.
No, mind and brain are synonymous in the context of a naturalist, so it's
You said
not.
Abstract physical ideas in the mind, right?
Yeah, there
And
are
then
no
we have
abstract physical ideas.
instantiated
There are no
object-
abstract ideas that exist outside of the mind. It's all in the mind and the brain specifically.
I literally don't get what you're saying. I literally don't get what you're saying. Then, like your position doesn't seem incoherent at all.
It's the position of everyone in neurology and everyone in the cognitive science that it says the brain and mind are the same thing. Ideas are literal things in them. So if you think that everyone in neuroscience is incoherent, no, again, you're going to have to look up what an argument from authority is. You can do that on your own in your own time. I'm not going to explain it to you. Everyone in neurology, everyone in cognitive science, everyone in psychology accepts.
Can you make formal arguments?
So everyone in every academic field.
Can you make formal arguments authority, dude.
You're cutting up again. Again, if you want to be educated on an argument from authority, Google it. I'm not going to just give you educations on basic facts of philosophy. If you want to challenge those, go challenge everyone in philosophy. I'm not going to waste my time with it. It's just, here's a fact of philosophy. You don't like it, I don't care what you think. So everyone in neurology accepts that the brain and the mind are the same thing. Ideas are literal things in the brain. It's just a combination of neurological connections, and that's it. And if you think that's incoherent, feel free to challenge every one of the experts in the field who are making progress, but I really don't care about your opinion.
Okay. So again, I'll ask you a simple question again. I'll ask you a simple question, right? Can you make any inferential process without appealing to authority?
Sure, I think, therefore I am.
I already explained why that collapses.
You tried to,
in
but
your
you just
worldview.
failed completely.
I literally explained it.
No, you literally failed.
You cannot hold that. If the proposition, for the proposition to be necessarily true, there has to be certain necessary conditions that are satisfied, right?
Yeah, it describes reality. If it describes reality, it's necessarily the case at time t.
So it describes that some conscious mind exists and it thinks, therefore it is.
No, it describes any
out of
fact of reality.
necessity.
Any fact of reality, if it's true, is going to be true of reality.
So a necessary conscious mind exists out of necessity. Why do you?
No, again,
reject
you're
God?
not
That's
understanding the facts here. So if it is any fact about reality, the world is round at time t, that is a necessary truth because it's necessarily the case that at time t the world is round. So necessary doesn't, you don't need it to mean.
That's coherence theory of truth. So you've rejected your.
No, I
theory
didn't.
of
So
truth.
your ignorance of philosophy isn't my problem. What I said is perfectly fine. So try again.
You can. So if you hold that it's necessary at time t, then you hold that time t doesn't have to be instantiated.
Nope, that's not at all
for
what it
that
means.
proposition to be true.
You're assuming your predications of necessary, which isn't the case.
Okay,
So I don't care about
okay,
your
you're just
language
being
use.
dishonest. You're just being dishonest at this point.
No, it's just a fact of reality. If you don't like the words, again, you can take it up with philosophy. I don't care what your opinion is.
It's just a fact of reality. Why? How do you know that?
How I know it is independent of its truth. So I don't know why you're bringing up epistemology when we're talking about ontology.
Oh, you made a claim. Okay.
Yeah.
Can
So
you
again, I made the
justify
claim
it?
that
I'll ask you to justify.
any fact of reality is a necessary fact of reality. So if I know it's a case, that doesn't make a difference. It's still the case. So it could be the case that the world is flat, then that would be a necessary fact of reality. Asking me how I know it's the case, I don't need to. It's not a part of my argument. I just don't understand.
Does the future exist in the present?
Depends on what you mean by time. Like you'd have to just physics it.
What? I asked you if the future exists in the present because you
Time
said it
is
can
a
be true
physical
at
thing. Time is literally is physics. So
is time t necessarily instantiated?
if it's a description of reality, yes, that's literally what it means.
So you hold to some form of necessitarianism.
No, don't ever try to label me with some other people's positions. I don't care about their positions.
Do you hold to some form of necessitarianism? It's a simple
don't ask
concept.
Don't ask about any other isms. Like I don't care about their position. There is a necessary truth. Reality is reality.
Do you adhere to that concept in your worldview?
Again, don't ask me about other isms because they're not mine, so I don't care. So my position is reality is reality. Now that is a necessary truth. So that's fine.
Reality is reality. Yeah, it's just correspond. You're just evading at this point.
No, I'm answering from my
really
worldview.
answered
If you don't like it, I don't care if you like it. So I've perfectly justified my standpoint.
Your objections are just restating the claim over and over again.
Well, no,
It's
you haven't
true
brought up a
because it's
criticism.
true.
You're saying, well, what about this other position?
No. Your criticism.
You've shown no problem with anything I said.
Criticisms are false.
You've shown no problem with anything I've said.
True. Yeah, you're just begging the question. You're begging the question.
Nope. Again, you've shown no problem with anything I've said, ever. You just keep bringing up other positions that are relevant to what I've said. So again, I think therefore I am. That's true. You don't need God. So far, that position stands completely. You've brought up no objections to it at all.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, go ahead, try to demonstrate that I can think and not exist. Try, go for it.
No, well, here's the thing. Like, you can apprehend some eternal mental state, right?
Nope, I didn't say any of that. So I think
That's-
therefore I am.
that's-
So it's false.
There are many. No, that's what the Neoplatonists could argue.
I don't care what a Neoplatonist said. So
I think
show
they're-
show my statement is false.
Stop it! I'm trying. It doesn't matter if you don't care. I'm simply explaining how it collapses within your worldview until some sort of paradox, considering your position.
Okay, but none of
If
that
your
makes sense.
position were to be
Show
true.
it. Stop saying what a Neoplatonist
Stop.
said. Show it.
Stop.
Show it.
The Neoplatonist would say that all consciousness is derived from the one. So they could just say, I participate in the consciousness of the one.
Okay, but
I
still
think
true.
therefore I am as a necessary truth. Stop. And it can only be, the conditions of that proposition can only be satisfied if there's a thinking mind. Therefore, the one that whose consciousness I participate in necessarily exists.
Which doesn't in any way refute anything I said. So irrelevant.
Pretty simple. Yeah. Okay.
So if I think, therefore I am, and I am the ultimate mind, well, I still think, therefore I am. So my argument still stands. Like nothing you just said in any way refutes my position.
You're the ultimate mind. If a necessary mind exists, then your entire worldview.
No, again, I
collapses.
never said that at all. So my worldview starts with I think, therefore I am. So I can say that without presupposing there is a God, unless you want to presuppose that I'm a God.
I don't think I've ever debated someone as sophistic as you are, dude.
That's great. So again, you can try to disprove my argument, but you haven't. So I think, therefore I am. And that is true. Even if you grant all the nonsense the Platonist would say, I'm still right. So you haven't debunked my argument, my starting point, which does not include God anywhere in it.
Well, if it's given, right, then the one would exist within the Neoplatonist worldview.
I don't care. I just
And
showed
if
that
the
doesn't
one-
help.
I could just use I think therefore I am to argue for the Christian God. I
Go
could
for
argue for like
I don't.
consciousness.
So it's okay.
I already did.
My
Right.
position is I think therefore I am. I now have knowledge without any reference to a God, which disproves your position. Now, if you can use it to support your position, that's fine
There are
too.
certain contextual, if here's the thing, if the contextual conditions of the premise or like the inference are not satisfied, then it becomes arbitrary. It doesn't mean anything, right? And if it doesn't
Wrong.
mean anything, I don't know why you would assert it to.
Well, no, it does. It means exactly what I said it means. It means I think, therefore I am. So you just spew enough nonsense because you don't know what the words mean doesn't actually help your position. I think, therefore I am is true.
I am. Some thought is like you could just say you're participating in some mental state.
As soon as
Like,
you say
that's an
I'm
objection.
participating, as soon as you say I'm participating, I exist. As soon as you say I'm participating, I
Yeah, sure.
exist.
Something that participated exists, yeah. But
Which is
what
the
I'm
entire
saying
argument.
is,
That is
like,
it. You've just
sure.
granted my argument. You said I'm right.
No, like the cogito. No, my whole point is I can completely isolate the cogito from the subject and say there's like a subject recipient,
Which
right? And if there's
no,
a subject recipient, then the cogito references some necessary mind and not contingent mind.
Wrong. So again, the subject recipient is the subject. So you still exist and you still have knowledge without a God. So it still disproves your argument. You just admitted I'm right.
But the cogito's in reference to some necessary subject. and
Nope,
not
I never said anything about
subject
necessary.
Contingent recipient.
No, I didn't say I was
If it's
necessary.
really true, then its conditions can only be satisfied by the necessary mind.
Nope,
Do you
I never said
understand
that.
like basic like status conditions?
No, I do. I said just none
What
of the
does
stuff
it
you're
mean
saying
for a
corresponds to anything. So again, I
What
think
does it-
therefore
what
I
does it
am.
mean?
Like it could be the case that everything about me is perfectly contingent. Like I am just a material being produced by evolution in a 13.8 billion year old universe. But I still think therefore I am. I can still know that and have no necessary anything in anything I said other than the fact that reality exists. So the only part of my statement that is necessary is reality.
You haven't addressed. That's just like some ad hoc. That's just
No,
some ad
that's
hoc. It has
perfectly
nothing to do
logical.
with
Like everything I said is perfectly logical. None of it is ad hoc at all. Like what do you think ad hoc means?
No, you just made some statement.
What do you think ad hoc means?
You just what to this? You made some statement to distract from the topic at hand.
No. The topic is how do I justify
You
knowledge?
just
without
said
God?
therefore. It's true.
Your position is
What you said is. No, we were discussing the cogito, and you said I believe the cogito is true in reference to me as some subject. Therefore, it's true.
What? I never said that. I said, I think, therefore I am, which is a descriptive fact of reality. So my belief about it is independent.
I think, therefore I am is a descriptive fact of reality.
Yes.
Or you could be participating in some mental state that's
that doesn't make it not a descriptive fact of reality.
I mean, even if you're a subject...
It's still a fact of reality, even if I'm a subject.
Yeah, even if it's a descriptive fact of reality, even if it's a descriptive fact of reality, it would prove that God exists.
No, again, that's wrong. So my formulation did not presuppose a God. Your formulation presupposing a God does not refute my formulation. It's like saying the cup knocked over. Well, if the cup knocked over, I'm going to presuppose someone knocked it over.
My formulation explained why your formulation collapses.
No, you failed. You failed, so that didn't work. So I think therefore I am perfectly fine.
Your formulation collapses on its own reason.
No, it doesn't.
What?
You failed. It did not in any way. I think therefore I am does not in any way collapse in on its own reasoning. That's just insane.
Why? I mean, from the atheist perspective, why doesn't it collapse on its own reasoning? You can just keep asserting that, but I've clearly debunked that over and over.
Because I exist, so it's describing reality.
Because okay, but how do you know that it's referencing you and not some mental state that you're participating in?
Those are the same thing. This tautology. Those literally are the same thing.
There's a difference between willing some mental state from your own natural intellection.
I never said I willed it at all. I don't care if I'm just experiencing or participating in it or willing it. None of that makes a difference. I don't care if I'm a brain in the vat. I don't care if I'm determined. I don't care if I'm free will.
If you're experiencing it, if you're experiencing and participating in some necessary mental state, then it isn't something inherent to you, right?
Which doesn't make a difference because I never said it was inherent to me. So as long as I have an experience, doesn't matter what the experience is or how it is or what it's contingent or necessary.
Therefore, necessary mind exists for cogito to be true.
No.
TJump's worldview collapses.
Which none of that follows. You just said a bunch of gibberish that doesn't follow a conclusion. Like try to put that into an argument format.
Somehow. I already explained
nothing.
I already did. I put it into a format over and over again for you.
No, you just said gibberish. Like nothing you said makes sense.
You just said gibberish.
Right, because nothing
that
you
isn't
said
the
literally
case.
doesn't make
Therefore,
sense.
it isn't the case. Right. Nice prevarication. Yeah, you're just reasoning circularly.
That's not reasoning. That's just saying what you're saying doesn't make sense. So if what you're saying doesn't make sense, then it's not
inferential processing.
Again, what you're saying just literally doesn't make sense.
How doesn't it make sense?
So I say, I think, therefore I am. Like, I don't care if I'm experiencing something in a different worldview or being subject to some kind of greater mind. Like, none of that makes a difference to me. It is possible, yes. Is it necessary? No. So I can have that as one possibility. And one possibility is I'm just a brain.
Is the proposition necessarily true?
Again, it can be, if it's a description of reality, it is. You don't need a mind for it, no. So, no.
You don't need a mind for the proposition.
Right, so you don't need a necessary mind.
You don't need a mind to exist for the stop. You don't need a mind with a thought to exist for the proposition. A mind with a thought exists to be true.
You don't need a necessary mind. That was what I should have said.
If the proposition is necessarily true, then it would need a necessary mind.
No, it doesn't. That's just an assertion. You've shown none of that.
I haven't shown that.
No.
Okay, so there's two conditions in it, X and Y. I don't argue divine conceptualism, Larry Hoover. But okay, I don't believe in conceptual, but there's two conditions in the proposition. X and Y. So X would be there's a thinker, right? Or there's a thought. Y would be there's a subject thinker, right?
No, so that's wrong. It's just one. It's just one. The thinking and the thinker are the same thing.
Necessarily.
Wait. Go back. Hold up. You just got that first part wrong. So there are not two variables. Those two things you listed are the same variable. The thinking and the thinker are literally the same thing. There's no difference between them.
Thinking and the thinker are the what do you mean the thinker and the what?
The thinking and the thinker are literally the same thing.
Yeah, because of divine simplicity, yes.
No, because I'm the one doing the thinking, so I don't think you would qualify me as that.
Necessary.
So again, you just asserting that isn't evidence at all. Like,
What?
you just asserting that is not in any way evidence. So I can be a thinker that is purely a product of evolution, and I am the thinking. I'm doing the thinking right now. So I exist, no reference to a God. I'm just an evolutionary byproduct of natural selection. And the statement, I think therefore I am, is true, no God.
Monkey evolved. Monkey evolved biological machine acts, thinks, therefore makes the assertion, I think, therefore I am, right? That doesn't, okay, so then we still have the conditions, right? So they have to be satisfied. They have to necessarily be satisfied if the proposition is necessarily true. How hard is that for you to grasp?
What you're saying, again, makes no sense. So the argument, I think, therefore I am, is going to be true for a God if a God exists, but it's also going to be true for a monkey if a monkey exists. So if a thing exists, it does not need to be necessary for this statement to be true. The statement is true if it's a fact of reality.
How can it necessarily be true? How can it necessarily pertain to the monkey?
Because it's a fact of reality. Reality is necessary.
It's a fact of reality. Do you believe that there's a formal reality? Is there a formal reality?
A what?
Is there a formal reality, or is there only like some instantiated reality?
I don't know what you mean. There is reality, and reality is reality. I don't know what you mean by formal reality.
So like we could say like statement Y like describes like the reality of the concept or whatever. Like, would you affirm that or no?
Statements describe reality. Yes. Statements are not relevant to reality.
Does proposition X describe the reality of a concept? Can it
describe reality? Period. There's no reality of a concept is also reality, just like every other reality. So statements can describe reality. Yes. Or they cannot describe reality, then it'd be false. Did I disconnect? Did somebody disconnect? You guys still hear me?
We can still hear you, yeah.
All right, cool.
Interlocutor, are you there? He's muted.
Maybe he's his mic disconnected or something.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Something happened with my connection. It said like RTC disconnected. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
TJump, are you there?
Yeah, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear me now? So yeah, does proposition X describe the reality of concept Y? Like just
Proposition X describe the concept Y? It can? Yes.
the reality. Can there be like realities of concepts, right?
I don't know what that
something
means.
Like accurately portrayed. You don't know what that means.
Reality is everything that exists. A concept is something that exists in the mind. Yes, you can have propositions that describe concepts in the mind.
Does the content of the concept exist?
Those are the same thing. There's no difference between the concept and the content of the concept. Like water and H2O.
There's no difference. Yeah, and again, so that just leads to the same problem.
There's no problem there.
So like if I have like a concept of a unicorn, does that mean a unicorn is instantiated?
No, because the concept is not the thing in and of itself. It's confusing the map and the territory, as I mentioned before.
So the content of the concept isn't instantiated then.
No, the concept and the content of the concept are both the concept. The thing in and of itself is not the same as the concept of the thing.
Or the concept of the concept of the concept or the content of the concept is instantiated.
Anytime you say concept, it's all going to be the same thing. It's only when there's the thing that is not a concept that exists independently of the concepts. That is a different thing.
You can't have a concept. You can't have a concept of a concept.
They're just both be conceptual things. So there's no independence of the concepts and the thing outside of the concepts. That's the distinction.
But there's still a concept. there's still a concept of a concept.
Right. You can
Just
have an
asking
idea
you a
of an
question.
idea. You
It's
can
a yes or no
imagine yourself thinking. Like, none of that's a problem. They're all concepts.
So, but you still said that. So, what you're saying is that the content of the concept doesn't actually exist, but the
No, all
conceptualized
conceptual things are
they-
just ideas in the head. Concepts of concepts of concepts. They're all just things in the head.
This literally doesn't make sense to me at all.
What doesn't make sense? So I
So,
can have an idea. I can have idea of something like myself thinking in my head.
If the content of the concept, dude, if the content of the concept is instantiated, then that means it's instantiated. It's a
Okay,
simple
none of that
tautology.
helps your position. So again, I can have an idea in my head of thinking of myself thinking, and all of that is just neurological combinations of things happening in the brain. There's nothing incoherent about that.
Thinking of, yeah, that doesn't really address it. It doesn't matter if there are neurological compositions or not.
You would have to explain why that's the case, because that really shows there isn't a problem there.
Because even if they're neurological compositions, if the content of the concept is instantiated, if the properties of like we have conceptual unicorn and its properties, if those properties are instantiated, then unicorn X exists.
Again, all that's just
like,
gibberish. So if you say instantiated just means it's a physical neurological state. That's literally what instantiated means. Any concept that is instantiated is a neurological state.
An instance is just like a present state of existence. It has like some present state of existence.
So literally any concept that is ever instantiated literally just means some neurological state. That's it.
No, just because a concept exists doesn't mean the content of the concept exists.
No, that's so anytime you put concept and instantiated, it's literally a neurological state. If you say the thing in and of itself is instantiated, that can be the case, but it can never be a concept. It's not going to be a concept that's instantiated. Anytime a concept is instantiated, it's a brain state by definition.
The instantiation of a no. If a unicorn is hylomorphic, it exists.
A unicorn is an object.
Like this basic,
a unicorn is an object, not a concept. So if the concept of a unicorn is being instantiated, that means it's in the mind.
Objects are.
If a unicorn is instantiated,
I think there's
a
just a
physical
disagreement
unicorn.
of terminology here. I mean,
The concept of
I take interlocutor. You mean
what?
I take it when you say instantiated, you're just talking about the thing the concept is about, right? Exists.
So like I'm talking about the content of
concept
the I'm talking about like the predicational content of the concept.
That's an oxymoron. So a unicorn is an object, and an object exists.
So we have like a. How is it an oxymoron?
Because concepts only exist in the mind. A concept is like, if you say the content of the concept is imaginary. So it can't ever be instantiated outside of the imagination. The object can be instantiated, which would be like a unicorn. If a unicorn is instantiated, it physically exists somewhere. So it has an instantiation. It's not the content of the concept. That is not what it is. It is a physical unicorn. The object of the unicorn is instantiated. If the concept of the content of a unicorn is instantiated, that means it's an imaginary thing, because the word concept. I think he disconnected again. Well, I think I lost connection that time. Oh, I think I lost connection that time.
Yeah, you were kind of cutting out over again.
Yeah, that was my bad. So the concept of the content, if the content of a concept is instantiated, that means it's an idea in the mind. If the object itself is instantiated, that means it exists outside of the mind. So when you say the content of the concept, that literally just means a concept.
Concepts are of objects. What do you mean?
Right. So if the content of the concept is instantiated, The object is instantiated. That's what you're trying to say. The object is instantiated. So like a unicorn.
Yeah.
So that is correct. An object is instantiated. The content of the concept is just a brain state. So a brain state is the content of the concept. But if the object itself is instantiated, then that means that it's not a concept anymore.
But that means that the concept itself was instantiated on the basis of the object being instantiated, because the concept is of the object.
That's confusing the map and the territory.
So yes, I'm not conflating it. I'm saying that the content. Saying that the content conveyed within the map would be instantiated when the territory is instantiated.
Right. So ideas are never going to be accurate representations of reality. They cannot do that.
No. Dude, the content like of the concept is just like some like abstraction, right? Is what I'm saying.
No, the content of the concept is again a brain state. The object itself can be instantiated.
Just because saying it's a brain state doesn't address the problem, right?
So I think what you don't understand is that ideas can never correspond to reality exactly. So your idea of a unicorn is never going to be in reality. It's only going to be a vague recollection or vague similarity of an object. So the content of the concept is only ever going to be in your head, nothing else. It's only ever going to be in your head. There is no such thing as the content of your concept outside of your head.
Wait, let me address that. If the content of this vague idea of a unicorn, if this like formal content, abstract content is instantiated, that would mean the unicorn exists.
No, again, because the concept of a content is only necessarily going to be in the brain. You can't ever get it outside of the brain. Can't do it. It's always going to be something different.
Yeah, you're equivocating on the concept and its content and its abstract.
No, the content of the concept is literally an imaginary idea in your head every time necessarily.
Saying property set Y is instantiated, right? Like means that Y exists. Like that's the entire point.
Right. So an object can be instantiated. A concept cannot. It looks as anything other than just a brain state.
In an object instantiatorily exemplifies some set of properties that is conceptual.
Wrong. That cannot do. That it cannot do. Or anytime you try to equate the object and the concept, you can't do it. That's just analytic synthetic distinction. Nope.
I disagree. I disconnected again.
Okay, so you can't ever try to make a parallel to the concept and the properties of the concept and the properties of the thing in and of itself. That is confusing the map and the territory fallacy. The concept and the properties of the concept are never going to be the same as the properties.
I never claim that the concept and the properties of the concept are the same. So that's a straw man.
What? The properties of the concept and the concept are literally the same thing. I don't know what you mean. The object.
I'm saying that the properties within the concept don't actually exist. They're simply abstractions.
The properties in the concept do literally exist. They literally exist in the brain where they're the concept.
Yeah. Okay. So principle of identity of non-discernibles. What's the difference?
There isn't one. They're the same thing.
Yeah. So how does the unicorn not exist then?
It exists as an idea. The idea of a unicorn exists.
That just begs the question. You haven't explained the differentiation.
There isn't a difference. Like the idea of a unicorn and an actual unicorn, one would be existing in the mind, one would be existing in not the mind.
What's the difference? What's the difference between a physically instantiated idea and a physical instantiated object?
Well, the object wouldn't be an idea. The idea is a neurological.
The idea is of the object. What's the difference?
An idea is a map. It's like a model, like in a computer, that doesn't actually exist independently of the model.
What does it mean? What does it mean for like the content of like a concept to be instantiated?
It means you have an idea in your head.
What is that?
Content of a concept means idea in the head. Necessarily.
evading. You're just evading, dude.
No, I just literally answered your question directly. The content of a concept, literally what that means. A concept is an idea in the head, and if it has content, then it is the stuff inside the idea.
No, you haven't explained what the difference is between
I said there is no difference. There is no difference between the content of a concept and a concept.
So you conceded my point.
No, you just don't understand the terms. What you're asking is, what is the difference between the object actually existing and the object existing as an idea? It's literally in the sentence there. It's an idea, which means it doesn't exist independent of the mind. So again, but none of this helps your case.
The content of the idea isn't actually instantiated. That's
the content of the idea is an idea, so it is instantiated as a neurological state. So you keep saying this over and over again, just your ignorance of the basic concept.
Dude. Ignorance of the basic content. The content is like a descriptive model for the object itself. The object isn't instantiated.
The content is a descriptive model of the idea of the object. It's always about the idea.
Like, you're saying like some hylomorphic. You can have like some
I didn't say hylomorphic at all, so you can't use that in me.
This like doesn't make sense at all, TJump.
No, it makes perfect sense to like literally everyone who isn't you. So an idea, the content of an idea is in an idea. There's no content outside of the idea. It's just in the idea. So the content of a concept is the content of the idea in your head, which is just in your head, nothing outside of your head. So if you're saying there is a thing like, outside of your head,
you're saying like the content is instantiated.
No, I'm saying the idea is instantiated as a physical brain state, and the content of the idea is a part of the physical brain state. There's nothing outside the brain state.
How is that? How is you're just like asserting something incoherent? How is that the case?
No, it's perfectly coherent. Like literally everyone in the chat gets this.
How is it the case?
I have an idea. Inside the idea is an apple. The apple is the content of the idea, and that apple is also a part of the idea. It's in my head. It's instantiated as an idea in my head.
So yeah, what's the difference between the concept of an idea being of an apple being instantiated and an apple actually existing?
One exists in my head, one exists in reality. Outside of my head.
That just begs the question.
One exists as a neurological state, which is a representation of reality, and one exists as an independent part of reality.
You're just making a tautology.
No, I'm not. This is just basic facts.
Of the form.
No. This
in
is
your worldview, that would be a tautology.
No, this is extremely
simple.
In
your worldview, that would be a tautology.
No, this is extremely simple. So again, it's like asking what's the difference between a picture of an apple on a TV screen and an actual apple. One is a picture, and one actually exists independently of the picture.
How about we're not saying like the actual. We're saying the picture exists, but that like the content painted in the picture doesn't actually exist.
No, I'm saying they both exist. The content is the picture.
Dude, the content in the picture is derived abstractly from the picture.
No, I'm saying the content is the picture. That I've said that multiple times. The content of the concept is the concept. The picture is the picture.
That's literally incoherent. The content in the picture exists, therefore the picture is instantiated.
The picture is the picture, and the content of the picture is the piccure. So again, you keep confusing the language because you don't know it. You don't understand the philosophy. What you keep trying to ask,
it's not a map.
No. What you keep trying to ask is, what is the difference between the object in and of itself in reality and the concept of the object, which is the exact same thing as the difference between a picture of an apple and an actual apple.
The difference between the concept, the concept and the object that the concept is conveying.
No, again, that's you not understanding language. That's your mistake, sir. You keep putting in the word concept on both sides of the sentence. It doesn't work. No. Concept is concept. Anytime you use concept, it's a concept.
Stop. No, I didn't use it on both senses.
You just did. What is the content of the concept and the concept?
Okay, what I said is that the only principle of differentiation for an apple and in the concept of an apple is that the content of one is instantiated and the other isn't.
No, that's not at all the case. That's dumb. So literally the same thing is the difference between a picture of an apple and an actual apple.
Literally, already explained why.
Let me explain this why you're wrong again. If you ask what's the difference between a picture of an apple, why are you still talking?
Read Aristotle.
No, I understand more about philosophy than you about literally everything. I've read Aristotle. You don't understand what you're talking
guys,
about.
Guys, if you can probably move on from this and bring it back to the central.
Well, I've got to clear up this
not going
stupid
anywhere.
argument he's saying. So again, if you ask what's the difference between a picture of an apple and a real apple, there is clear differences.
He told us to move on. And
I've got to clear up my point here. I've got to make up. Clear up the point here, and then you can move on if you want to. So again, a picture of an apple and an actual apple, there are obvious differences between the two, and it's literally the same distinction between the idea of an apple and an actual apple. Anytime he says content, the conceptual content is again just the idea.
But what's the property difference between a picture of an apple? What differentiated property is?
Apples are a fruit. They contain different combinations of neutrons and protons. The picture doesn't. They're different things. They have different physical conception, different physical structures. They're literally different physical objects.
Okay, okay, so I was disconnected again. So you said there's a physical difference.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the content isn't physical. You're my point.
Yeah. No, because they're physically different objects. The content is just the concept.
You said there's a physical difference. You said there's a physical difference. A painting is just like an abstract set of lines and other things, right?
Map and the territory fallacy, as I said like an hour ago. The representation of an object.
The territory fallacy would be saying that the representation of an object doesn't actually exist.
No, you're confusing the representation and the object itself. They are different things. They are not the same thing. There's no connection between the two.
No, the object exemplifies its
wrong. That is again your made up non-thing. No.
It is also true that you're just making some like reification fallacy too.
No, reification means using the same word in different ways or using your imagination to correspond to reality, something just an imaginary concept. Like no. That's literally what we're talking about is you have an idea in your head and you're trying to make it represent reality.
You're trying to provide some ontological commitment to abstract objects.
No. Again, there are no abstract objects in my world.
You're like saying each and every like conceptual property like individually exists like within this concept.
Each and every conception of your head exists. But again, none of this helps your case. Like all this is just me educating you on basic philosophy. I think therefore I am is still true. It still works. No God reference at all. So again, you've done nothing to support your worldview at all.
I literally debunked the cogito and
no one. You said gibberish that it didn't work, and you think it did, but okay.
Gibberish.
Yes,
okay.
Gibberish. Again, I think therefore I am stands perfectly well.
Where's gibberish? Okay. We already went over this. I don't want to go through the same thing over and over again.
I'm happy to. I can embarrass you over and over again. I'm happy to do it, because this works perfectly well.
It's 8:30, but where did you embarrass me?
Every single time. Like I think therefore I am.
Couldn't even get
reasonable.
into an actual discussion. We couldn't even get an actual discussion because we were discussing basic metaphysical intricacies that you can't understand.
Which I had to correct you on over and over again, which you didn't help your case. So I think therefore I am. I exist. I can exist. Maybe I'm a necessary being. Maybe I'm not. Necessary being is not required.
I correct you almost. I correct
you. You don't know anything about philosophy, so you are not educated in philosophy. I am. You're not. So. Here's again. I'll explain this to you again. I'll explain this. I'll explain this to you again.
You said the same thing that Jay Dyer.
Jay Dyer.
You said he doesn't know anything.
Yes, and so did every professional philosopher who's talked to him. They also say he doesn't know anything about philosophy. So I'll explain this to you again.
I literally don't get it.
I'll explain this to you again.
What?
I think therefore I am is true if I'm a necessary being or if I'm not a necessary being. So it's not required.
You're cutting out TJump.
Okay.
No, I can hear.
He's probably cutting out.
Okay, you're cutting out.
Nope.
It's not him. I can hear him.
Okay, so okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, so
now I can't.
Okay, I'll explain it again. I think therefore I am is true if I'm a necessary being or if I'm not a necessary being. If I'm a contingent being, just an evolutionary ape, it's still true, which means that statement is true independent of any presupposition of a necessary being, which proves your ideology false.
Wait, so what were you saying? Okay. What's going on?
You're cutting out.
Well, dude, yeah, can you hear me, Jump?
Yes.
Yeah, you told, again, like, what was your response? I said that you told philosophers that they don't know anything about philosophy. What was your response?
What? I didn't say that. I said
Well,
philosophers told Jay he doesn't know anything about philosophy.
Would really?
So like Jay's talking to
He
several...
literally has master.
What?
Guys, let's just not get lost in the meta. Maybe go back to the previous point.
Previous point. So yeah, I mean, what I said before is like Alex Malpass discussed with Jay and showed Jay didn't know anything. So actual philosophers have said Jay knows nothing of philosophy because he just doesn't.
I didn't watch the debate, but whatever.
So, but my point was that I think therefore I am. I exist. I know I exist. Maybe it's the case I'm a necessary being or connected to one in some way, but it's also possible I'm not. That is not logical contradictory. Wait. Go back. Stop. So if it's possible I'm a necessary being, or it's possible I'm not a necessary being, because it's a possibility I'm not, that means I can think and know something without ever presupposing a necessary being. So you don't need to do that to have knowledge. That disproves your worldview.
Do you adhere to? No, do you adhere to S5?
No.
Detroit, explain that later. You don't. Why do you reject S5?
Because it's the garbage language that's made up and has many problems with it. Like I don't accept S4 either.
I'm not running Dyer's argument. DGH, I'm not running Dyer. I ran a completely different argument. But
I didn't.
So S5. Right? So S5 basically states that if something like transcends all possibility in one timeline, then it would in all timelines. If that's not the case, then it wouldn't transcend all possibility in that one possible timeline. So I really don't get why you would reject that.
Well, I reject it for the same reason most philosophers reject it, where there's lots of just ridiculous presuppositions. It just doesn't work as a model of language. It's some guys made up this language. They think it works, and most philosophers say it doesn't.
Detroit, that is what S5 is. It's just language. That doesn't. Yes. So you're saying it doesn't correspond to reality?
It's yes, I think so.
You're just being a necessitarian. You said you're not.
No, I didn't. I didn't say I was necessitarian, so that doesn't work. But I reject S5.
Said you weren't a necessitarian.
Yes. Okay. I don't.
Said you weren't a necessitarian.
I said don't apply other worldviews to me. So I didn't say I was or wasn't. I'm just not even going to compare my worldview to other people's positions. Okay, that's what I said. So again, I reject. Going back to your original question.
Do you believe? Do you believe there's only one possible world?
There's one actual world.
Depends on other possible
worlds. So again, I just reject modal logic in that sense. I don't use it in that language game.
There are other ways the world could have been.
Probably not. It depends on if you accept quantum mechanics or not. Maybe not.
That's called necessitarianism, dude.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No,
there's only one possible.
I said it could be or could not be. I did not say it was necessarily the case. I said it could be or could not be, depending on your view of quantum mechanics. So listen next time.
If it's possibly the case, if it's possibly the case, then it's actually the case.
No, that is false. So that's one of the things rejected in S5.
Yeah. If necessitarianism is possible, it's actual. Like that's basic S5.
Yeah, which is many philosophers reject S5, and I'm going to go with them. So again, this doesn't help your case. Bringing up your preferred language doesn't help you.
I mean, there's also philosophers that accept S5. I mean,
yes, I'm sure. Yes, I know of them. I've spoken to many of them. Like this doesn't help your case.
You could do any appeal to authority. Like why is your appeal to authority better than mine?
You're asking why I don't accept it. So I don't need to accept it. That's why I don't accept it. So I mean, whether you accept it or not isn't relevant to anything I said.
Well, technically, your worldview doesn't have any preconditions, so you don't need anything.
Preconditions? I don't know what you mean by preconditions.
Yeah.
So, but
Like-
again, none of this has anything to do
No,
with the
your
point I made.
worldview
But okay,
is from like there can be.
okay, bringing up S5.
Okay, I
doesn't-
disconnected for a second.
Okay. Yeah, so nothing you've said in any way refutes anything I've said or my position. So again, my position, I think therefore I am. I can know that with or without
I
certainty.
explained why
You haven't.
S5. I explained why it's incoherent.
You
I
haven't. You
explained
just
why
brought up
it's
S5
incoherent
logic,
too.
which isn't relevant to my position, so that doesn't explain anything.
S5. It's like basic. Like if something exists in all possible worlds and one.
No, again, that's
possible
your
world, it
preferred
does in
language
all.
that
Like,
doesn't
that's pretty
describe
simple.
reality. No, not everyone accepts it, so I don't
If
need to
it-
accept
if it-
it. Next.
Okay, so can something that exists in all possible worlds?
If you want to try and
exist in
show
one
how that
possible world?
rejects my position, go for
I mean,
it. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole.
Detroyer, dude. Like, are like, did you know that like, what's his name? Plantinga literally said that. So I don't know what you mean. State that.
What? I did what? I didn't say didn't what?
I'm talking to Detroyer.
Yeah,
That's not what that's for.
we can have the discussion, but there's no point in responding to myself in text, right? Because you're having debate. TJump, we can discuss it afterwards.
What was your response, TJ? TJump, what was your response? Also,
that
my laptop's about to run out of battery soon.
S5 is rejected by many philosophers. Has nothing to do with my position. I don't care about S5, so it doesn't. Really
So why should I? Give me a second. Why should I accept your philosophers and not the ones that accept S5?
I don't care. I don't care what you accept. I don't accept S5, so using that as an objection doesn't work. Try again.
You don't care. No, I asked you why you would reject it simply on the basis of certain philosophies. That's what I asked you.
There's lots of reasons to object it, but again, I'm not going to go into just educating you on philosophy.
Why one philosopher over the other? You're just going to say it doesn't.
Again, I'm not just going to educate you on the basic criticisms of S5. I don't care. Like, it's not relevant to my position. So if you want to learn about S5, go do the research on your own, but it doesn't object to my position.
Doesn't, yeah, okay, nice cop out.
There's no cop out there. You've brought up a red herring and said, well, what do you care about this other philosophical position? Like, I don't care about that other philosophical position. If you want to show how that somehow there's a contradiction in what I said, go for it. But I don't need to address S5 unless you can do that, and you haven't. S5 is a version of modal logic. It's like modal logic is a way of a logical system, and S5 is a specific version of modal logic. DSM-5. S5 is S5 is not in all possible worlds. S5 is a specific kind of a logic. It's just a language. What's DSM-5? I don't know what DSM-5 is. Is that another kind of modem?
Hey, dude, my connection ran out. My laptop's about to run out of battery. I don't know what to do.
That's fine.
Give me a second.
You have a plug? You can plug it into the wall? Oh, gotcha.
Hello, what's
I can hear
going
you.
on? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I left after saying like Like my connection ran out, and then like that was after I said that this isn't going anywhere because we're just bickering.
Yeah, I mean, I brought up I think therefore I am, and you said S5 logic, but that doesn't help your position.
I think I said something along the lines of what did I use? I forgot. What did I think? I think therefore I am S5. Yeah, if it's like necessarily. Oh, you said like it's possible for like some necessary mind to exist, and I brought up S5.
Oh yeah, so I said I think therefore I am is true if I'm a necessary mind or if I'm just a monkey that came from evolution, because both of those are possible. That means it is not necessarily the case that you don't need to presuppose a necessary mind. You can have it without it, and you still
Why is that like is that like an exclusive disjunct?
What?
Is that an exclusive disjunct?
I have no idea what you're asking now. So it's like if it is required for you to presuppose a mind, and I can do it without presupposing a mind, that proves you wrong. So your argument is all swans are white. I'm saying
you said it's possible that there's some, you said it's possible that there's some necessary mind. I appealed to S5. You gave an arbitrary reason for rejecting.
Right, so I don't accept S5. So S5 says that if a possible being exists, then it exists in all possible worlds, and so you can't have both. I don't accept S5, so I don't accept those definitions of possible and necessary, because in S5 logic, it is a logical contradiction.
You gave an arbitrary. You made an.
No, I don't care. I don't have to give you a reason why I reject S5.
You made an appeal to authority to.
I don't have to give you a reason of why I reject S5. It's just not relevant to my argument, so I don't need to give you a reason.
Okay.
But I can. Here's the reason.
I think I've already.
So S5 is obviously false, because if it's you can't have a necessary being that possibly exists and possibly doesn't exist. It's just a logical contradiction, and so its use of language is obviously false. Next.
So possibly doesn't exist. So I don't. Yeah, but you could use like other arguments to explain why it's not possible for it to possibly not exist. S5 doesn't entail a contradiction necessarily.
I didn't say. No,
You're just trying to evoke like some notion of like.
No. I didn't say S5 was contradictory. I said its use of the word possible is contradictory because it doesn't correspond to our common use of the word possible. So I reject it.
So it's contradictory.
No,
it's hinged on its use of the word.
A contradiction is a problem within the own system. It says two things that contradict itself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying S5's use of possible contradicts our common use of possible. So I'm not saying there's an internal contradiction in S5. I'm saying S5's use of the term possible contradicts our use of the term possible. So when I say possible, I do not mean the same thing as S5.
Possible simply means something that could contingently be instantiated. That's not necessary. I mean,
right. That's in S5. That's what it means, but that isn't what it means when I say it. So that does not work. So when you bring up S5, I'm not using the words in those ways. What?
What do you mean by possible?
Something that could be the case, which includes necessary beings.
Necessary beings.
Yeah, so by my definition, you can have it's possible to have a necessary being, and it's possible to not have a necessary being. So it is both possible to have a necessary being and not possible to have a necessary being. Whereas in S5 logic,
that's a contradiction.
No. That's a contradiction in S5 logic.
It's possible for something to exist in all possible worlds, not exist in all possible worlds. So it's a contradiction, dude.
No. That's a contradiction in S5 logic. I reject S5 logic like most people. I use the word possible as a way means it could exist, it could not exist. And because S5 logic does not use language in that way, I reject S5 logic. So that S5 logic does not work.
How could something that's necessary simply means something that could not possibly not exist? So it transcends all possibility.
Right, and I reject that as a thing.
How could that?
That is not a thing. So
you reject that, yeah. So now you're just like creating definitions. This is just like a word concept fallacy.
No, it's not. So again, this doesn't help your position at all.
Yes, TJump.
No. Is it possible God exists and also possible God does not exist? Yes.
No, that's that's ridiculous. That contradicts like the very like.
No, that contradicts
concept
your
of necessity.
preferred language usage that no one accepts, which is why I don't care. I don't care about your language usage. So S5 does not in any way refute my position.
Accepts, no one accepts. A lot of people like Norman, Malcolm.
It wasn't meant to be literal. Obviously, many people do accept it. No one, as in the majority. It's not literal. Like when I say no one, I mean as in the majority. Like no one believes the world is flat. Obviously, isn't true.
So now an appeal to majority fallacy. Okay.
Nope, not an appeal to majority fallacy at all. I'm saying I reject S5 logic because I use language in this way, which corresponds to the way most people use it. It's not true because of that. That's not the justification for it. So it's
you
not
haven't
fallacy.
you haven't even described what possibility is, dude.
Yeah, I did. I literally gave the definition, something that could be the case or could not be the case. So it's possible God exists and possible God does not exist.
So what is necessity then?
Necessity is something that is always the case.
Something could possibly be always the case, or possibly not be always the case.
Yes.
At the same time. Yeah, that's
No, not at the same time.
No.
No. So it's possible that the standard logic applies to everything. It's possible. It's possible that it is necessary. I don't know. But it's also possible it's not necessary. I don't know.
Then it would be contingent.
No, that is incorrect. Again, you're going off on your own language game.
You literally don't know what you're talking about.
I literally do. I've literally corrected many people on this before. Like, no, that is incorrect.
No, you're like making yourself look retarded, dude.
No, I've corrected you on this multiple times. I've literally talked about with Ben Arbor on this multiple times. Like, I know what I'm talking about. You do not. So again, my arguments.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I do. I clearly do, and you clearly don't. I'm educated in philosophy. You're not. Just clear this up. Again,
you're not.
So your argument, your choice of using your choice of using your preferred language does nothing to refute my argument. I reject it just like most people reject it. So that does not in any way refute my argument. So nothing you've said over the past 20 minutes does anything to help your position. My statement stands. I think therefore I am.
That could not. Okay, let's go over this. So something that could not be the case, right?
What?
It's possible. So it's possible that something could not be the case. So that would mean that it is actually the case.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. So it's possible. It's possible that standard logic is necessarily true in all possible worlds, but it's also possible it's not.
How is that the case? Wouldn't you have to assume standard logic were true for it to not be the case?
No, you don't. You can just use a different logic, like many-valued logic.
Yeah, and like dialetheism and paraconsistency.
No, none of those are. That's not dialetheism at all. Many-valued logic is a kind of paraconsistent logic in many cases. You don't need dialetheism. You can use quantum logic. You can use intuition logic. So no. So there are multiple kinds of logic.
I never claimed it's dialetheistic, dude. I was just bringing up two different things. Okay.
So again, it's possible that logic, standard logic, applies universally, necessarily to all existing things, and it's possible it doesn't. It's possibly a necessary thing, and it's possibly not a necessary thing.
Standard logic would have to be true for standard logic to be false.
No.
Pretty simple.
No, that's wrong. Again, you can use a different logic.
How would you identify that?
By using a different logic.
What logic? Without all three of the laws of logic?
Yes, you can get rid of those. Many different versions of logic reject the laws of logic, those three laws of logic. You don't need them. You can use many-valued logic. It's perfectly consistent with reality.
Okay. So how would it be identifiably true that the law of identity is false?
I have no idea. Like, that's not a part of the question. I didn't say epistemologically. I said ontologically.
Nice.
I don't know why you're bringing up epistemology here. I'm talking about ontology.
Nice. I didn't bring up epistemology.
You literally asked, how would you know? You asked, how would you know? That's epistemology.
No, I said, how would it, I said, how would it be identifiably true?
Identifiably true. You mean like, how would we know it? False. How do we identify that it's true? How would we know it? Yes, that's epistemology.
No, it doesn't matter if we know it or not. I asked how would it be identifiably true?
Identifiable as epistemology.
To have possibility. No, identification. I'm not referring to like an identification, an act. I'm referring to even the possibility of identification, which would be something objective, right?
If many-valued logic was true, then standard logic would not be true.
Yeah, how is that identified?
Identified as epistemology again. You don't need to identify it. It's like saying, what if
How is it even possibly identifiable? Like, where's the
identifiable as
identity?
epistemology? You don't need to identify it. It's just they're two different versions of logic. They are not the same. One can be true, the other one is not true. You're just ignorant of basic philosophy here.
Stop running and answer the question.
No, I'm literally answering the question. You just don't know philosophy. You're just so ignorant of philosophy. You don't understand these are two different logics. If one is true, I'm literally answering. I'm literally answering.
Stop with
No, I'm literally answering. I'm literally
answering.
answering. So again,
how would it be identified?
I'm literally answering this. Okay, identify as epistemology. I've already debunked you on that. There are two different logics. They are not the same thing. If one is true, the other is not true.
You haven't debunked me at all.
I literally am answering you multiple times here. There are multiple different kinds of logic. One could be true and the others could be false. Identification is irrelevant. It's just ontology.
The possibility of identity has nothing to do with identifying subjects. So no,
I never said it did. So again, that does nothing to address the case. There are multiple kinds of logic.
So how would it even be possibly identifiable?
Again, identifiable epistemology. I've debunked you on this. Like, you don't understand the philosophy. There are multiple kinds of logic. Do you understand there are multiple kinds of logic? Do you understand there are multiple kinds of logic?
Yes, you're
okay. So if we go back, so if there are multiple kinds of logic, stop. If there are multiple kinds of logic, that means one could be true and the others could be false, correct?
Okay. So you're equivocating.
Answer the question. Answer the question. If there are multiple kinds of logic, one could be true and the others could not be true, correct?
That's pretty simple. That assumes the law of non-contradiction. That assumes the law of identity.
Right. So that means there could be a logic that has both true and false and different kinds of many value. That is the true one. And the standard logic does not apply universally.
Which is preconditionally hinged on standard logic.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So it goes in a circle, moron.
Wrong, idiot. We're using standard logic in our argument to make the point. You're an idiot. No, you idiot. I'm using standard logic in our conversation because I know how to do it. That does not mean standard logic is true about the universe. I'm just using this to make a point. So you are confusing the map and the territory like always, and thinking that my use of standard language in this argument implies its truth about the universe, which is not the case. So again, you just
you asked me the question. You asked me the question. I walked you through it. Okay.
No, I walked you through it. You were so ignorant of philosophy. I'm so bored with you. You're so dumb. Oh my God.
You're bored with me?
I am bored
with you. I'm dumb. Thank you. Nice ad homs.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the Q&A because this guy, I've dunked on this guy all day. Let's go.
Okay.
What is the standard logic? Yes. What? No, there is none.
Do you guys want to move on to like taking questions from people?
Yes.
Do you guys want to do some closing statements? Do you guys want to do some closing statements, or just go ahead with the Q&A right away?
Let's go with the Q&A.
All right.
I'll do a closing statement.
Okay, go ahead, man. If you want.
So I explained how like the cogito is not internally consistent within his worldview, right? He grounds all possibility in the cogito. He grounds necessary truths in the cogito. I explain how that collapses into theism, right? I explained how on the basis of S5, right, that it necessarily follows that if it's possible for idealistic mind that like grounds like all like forms, right, to exist, then it would necessarily exist. He arbitrarily rejected it. Then we got into this discussion where he contradicted himself again. I think that TJump's worldview is completely incoherent.
All right, then I'll do my closing. Like everything you just said is demonstrably dumbass shit. Like nothing in the cogito is self-refuting at all. It's obviously not self-refuting, and nothing in my worldview in any way ties in necessity to the cogito at all. The cogito is just a description of quality experience, and we create languages based off of that. Necessity and possibility are just a part of those languages. They're not grounded in the cogito at all. He just clearly just doesn't understand the position. He doesn't understand that bringing up S5 logic doesn't refute anything because it's just his presupposed language game, which doesn't apply to most philosophers. So saying that it does is irrelevant. He just doesn't understand basic philosophy in so many ways. It's just a waste of time.
All right, so I guess we can go ahead with the Q&A now.
Yeah. Okay.
Troy, you want to like take questions and maybe they can like answer individually?
Yeah, you said.
Yeah, but if people want have a question to ask, they can just ask and I'll unmute them if they want to voice it.
Yeah, that sounds that's a good idea.
So just mention in the chat if you have a question to ask. All right, I saw Seb first, so
Yeah, I don't really care for Q&A, so I'm probably just going to.
Well, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
okay.
It's not going to take up too much time. So I heard that there was a so TJump.
Yeah.
I heard that you mentioned that you knew of some criticisms against S4 and S5. I'm just curious. So what would be the logic that you would use if you were to logically translate the statement, God exists?
Standard logic.
And what is standard logic?
Just the classical stuff. A equals A. A does not equal not A. Law of non-contradiction, law of the middle. No additional premises about necessity and possibility.
So just like first order logic?
Yep, pretty much.
And not first order. Okay, yeah. So just first order logic. All right, that's my question.
But then you later make statements about possibility and necessity. You don't think those?
No, I don't use some independent logic for those. This is not a secondary kind of logic in addition to those where these are new categories. These are just entailed in first order logic.
So, okay, if you're using first order logic, if we say God exists, and we're going to logically translate that now into first order logic, right? Would we use existential quantifiers for the exists part, or would we use an existence predicate?
You wouldn't use existence at all. You just say like P. Here's this property, and just that is it.
Wait, what property was that?
Whatever properties are entailed in a God, you say there is this object X which has these properties, and then that would just be existence. You wouldn't actually use exist as a quantifier or a predicate anywhere.
Okay, but I think you're talking about maybe other sentences about God, like maybe sentences attributing God to have like being infinite, being eternal, things like that.
Right,
I'm just saying, just
using,
the statement, just the sentence, God exists.
You wouldn't.
How would you logically translate that?
You wouldn't. You wouldn't put the exists in. You would describe properties that exist. Existence isn't a predicate. You would not include the exist. You would use actual properties that are actual predicates.
Right. So you're saying existence is not a predicate.
Right. Wouldn't use exist. Existence would just be entailed in other things like properties, actual existing predicate properties.
So you wouldn't logically translate the sentence God exists.
Not literally as stated, no. I would use actual predicates.
Okay, so I'm taking it you would paraphrase the sentence God exists with some other sentence?
The properties of God, like there is these sets of properties that you describe as God, and there is this thing that has these properties or whatever. Dogs are furry. If the dog is furry, it exists because it has the predicate of furry or whatever.
Okay, I'm done.
All right. I didn't see in the chat if someone else had a question for either TJump or Interlocutor. It looks like interlocutor is left.
There was a question from Zikashi Farmer to TJump. He asks, is an appeal to authority fallacious if the opponent rejects the authority?
No, because the authority isn't dependent on whether the opponent accepts it, necessarily. Can be in certain cases, I guess.
Your idea is like whether someone's an authority is independent of whether someone believes that they're an authority.
Right. There are probably cases where that is the case, like an author or something. If it's disputed who the author is of a book, then it's possible it could be.
We have a track in the chat asking what your response to name the trait is, if you're familiar.
Yes, I've answered that before. I agree with veganism. I think it is immoral to eat animals. So I don't think there is a trait that makes it differentiates killing animals and killing humans. I think it's immoral to kill animals.
Okay. I imagine they'd follow up and ask, well, you're not vegan though, right?
Nope, I'm not a vegan. I'm just an immoral animal eater. So I accept it's immoral to eat meat, and I eat meat, so I accept I am immoral.
Okay. I think Orson was wondering if you think this is true about birds, fish, and plants as well.
Birds and fish. Birds and fish, yes, I think they're both conscious, so they qualify as morally relevant. I don't think plants do.
Okay.
Actually, now that I think of it, I had a question. Are you a moral realist? Do you think?
Yes. I am. Yes, I am a moral realist, like most philosophers.
Looks like Fear Inoculum has a question. You can go ahead.
Yeah, what's up? I came into the conversation late, but I heard something about you denying the existence of abstracta. What's the argument for abstract objects not existing, Tom?
I think abstract objects are just neurological states in the brain. So I don't think they actually exist as like platonic objects somewhere out in the universe somewhere. It's just concepts in the brain, nothing more. Neurological states.
What's the argument for that?
There's lots of arguments. I just go with an inductive analysis of how the brain works.
I don't understand.
As far as we know, everything about concepts, the things we call abstracts, are a result of neurological states in the brain, so it's reasonable to infer that abstract objects are just neurological states in the brain and nothing more.
So the reason to infer that abstract objects are just things in the brain is that science says what we think is a thing in the brain? Am I understanding that correctly?
That is definitely one of the arguments, yes.
Huh. Okay. No further questions.
I think
Catholic
had a question. Yeah, I don't know if he wants to get in voice to ask it, or I'll just ask it. He said, you told interlocutor that thought does not require any mind, but later in the debate you claimed that concepts are conceptualized in the mind, and he takes this to be a contradiction.
Yeah, I misspoke there. I said necessary mind. So thoughts are not required of a necessary mind. You can have a thought that is in a mind that is purely contingent. So I clarified that right after. I didn't mean no mind. I meant no necessary mind. It was my bad for misspeaking in that instance.
Fair enough. And Crispy is asking if you think you're an immoral animal eater, what sort of retributive action do you think you're worthy of receiving, like punishment or whatever?
Well, morality is independent of punishment, so it doesn't really matter the punishment. I haven't really thought about it in that context because justice and punishment and reward are independent of morality entirely. Like something is moral or immoral independent of whether or not someone punishes you for it. So I haven't tried to create a model to like weigh out what your just desserts are for doing immoral or moral actions, because that's independent of my model entirely.
All right. And user Jed is wondering if you could quickly explain what you take S5 to be.
S5 is a version of modal logic. It talks about possibility and necessity. I don't know exactly all of the details of it, but that's the general idea. It's just one of the versions of modal logic.
All right, I think Yuri had a question.
Hey, what's up? I just want to know, why does TJump take categorical norms to exist?
What do you mean by categorical norms?
So like norms that basically impose like certain actions, right, on what you ought do and ought not do. So basically objective morality.
Oh, no, oughts aren't required for objective morality. You can go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Moral Naturalism, and there are actually a number of models that don't use oughts, or oughts is a secondary criterion of just the fact. So you have a fact that I weigh X 180 pounds or whatever, and then from that you can infer a hypothetical imperative. I ought to do X or I ought to do Y based on my motivations. But you don't actually need oughts to have an objective morality.
Why would that be objective, though, and not just some sort of institutional norm?
You can look up the definition of objective. I don't have it on hand. I have it saved from the Stanford Encyclopedia of what it means
So
to
you
have a
don't know?
normative model. No, I do. I have it saved. It's not off the top of my head. But a normative definition of ethics does not entail an ought. So you don't need an ought for a normative theory of ethics.
Okay, last question. Do you think we ought believe you objectively?
No, you can choose to believe what you want or not to believe. I don't care. The oughts aren't relevant.
Okay, no more questions. No further questions.
I think Yuri has a question.
That was Yuri.
Yeah, that was my.
Oh, Yuri. Okay. Sorry.
Crispy had a question in chat. He said, so you don't think that extremely moral actions are connected in any way to a moral obligation for punishing such behavior?
Right. So I don't think punishment has anything to do with morality. Like, obviously the case. Like, if Hitler killed 1 million people and there was some God who rewarded him for it, it would still be immoral to kill the 1 million people. The reward or punishment after the moral action does not in any way affect the morality of the action. So the resulting punishment or reward is independent of the morality entirely. It has no relevance to morality at all.
But I guess more to the point, is there an obligation on others, for example, to take some action against someone who's performed some immoral action?
Not a moral one, no. It's pragmatic, yes, but no moral obligation. Like, if there's a killer going out killing people, we should, like, pragmatically, as a hypothetical imperative, stop him for the benefit of society, but there isn't a moral imperative to do so.
Okay.
Was MJ's question asked?
Which one? I might have missed it.
Well, he says, if no minds existed, for example, there could be some future worldwide disaster, and in the past, there were time periods when nobody was around. How would the cogito argument help clarify if God exists or not?
So a presuppositionalist assumes you need to presuppose God to have any claims of knowledge at all. And my argument is I have, I think, therefore I am, and I don't presuppose God. So the point is that I can get a claim. That's all I need, is just a claim at any point in time ever to disprove presuppositionalism. Like, I don't need to disprove presuppositionalism when there are no minds. I just need to disprove presuppositionalism one time ever to disprove it. It's not relevant if there are no minds. It doesn't matter to the argument.
Okay.
Jovan was wondering if you think that, is it the case that you ought to do the good action?
Again, that's a hypothetical imperative. So if you want to be good, then yes. If you want to be bad, then no.
But there's no, just imperative to do the good action, right? It's just...
Right. It's a fact of the matter that this is a good action and this is a bad action. And whether you ought to do the good action or the bad action is the hypothetical imperative of what you choose based on your personal goals. So it's still an objective model of morality because there is a fact of the matter that this is moral or this is good and this is immoral and this is bad. But then your ought to do one or the other is an additional external premise about hypothetical imperatives that are not required for objective morality.
Right.
Detroyer, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
You said earlier consumption of meat / animal products was immoral by your own lights.
Yes.
What's the reason you engage in an action that's immoral?
It tastes good.
So you think your taste is more important than the suffering of the animals killed to be put on your plate?
It's more important to me. I don't know if there's like a. I don't think it's more important in the grand scheme of things because I admit it's immoral. So I think I just like taste better than being immoral, being moral.
I mean, I don't know if you're like a moral realist or whatever, but isn't that just you saying you ought do it in virtue of the taste?
No. So I'm saying I ought not do it. I'm saying I should not kill animals, but I'm going to do it anyway because I like taste. So I think it is wrong for me. It is objectively wrong for me to kill animals morally, but I just don't care. I'm just going to do it anyway.
Are you a psychopath?
No, I can definitely feel empathy for many things.
All right, no further questions. Go ahead, Troy.
Larry Hoover was wondering how the cogito isn't question begging.
Because it's a tautology, it's saying the same thing twice. I think, therefore I am. The thinking and the I are the same thing in the statement. So it's just saying I exist and nothing more. So it's not actually a fundamental argument. It's just a descriptive statement. It would only be circular in the case of Bertrand Russell's usage or his criticism of Descartes' usage if the I implied that some kind of ontology. Like if you said, I am a purely material being or a dualistic being or an idealistic being or whatever, if you try to infer something about the I other than it's just the thinking, then it would be circular. But as long as you just use it to refer to the thinking, it's not circular. It's just a descriptive statement of I exist.
Crispy had another follow-up question on the immorality thing. So he says, what actually follows from saying that someone has done something immoral? Are there any sort of obligated actions such that that follow from normative claims?
Like for punishment? No, I'm not sure what he means there. So an action is objectively moral or immoral is just a fact of the matter. And then if you do the immoral action, it's just a fact that you've done the immoral action. For example, if I say I've jumped up, that's just a fact of the matter that I've gone up. Or if I say I've sat down, it's a fact of the matter I've gone down. So similarly, if you do immoral actions, it's just, again, just like a measurement of the fact that you've done something in the down direction. Or if you do moral actions, it's just a measurement of the fact you've done things in the up direction. But there's no like retributive aspect to it. It's just irrelevant.
I think what he's asking, though, is that suppose you do the immoral action. Is it the case that you should not have done that action?
No, again, those are hypothetical. The oughts are hypothetical imperatives. So you can get rid of all oughts entirely. Not unique to my model, common thing in moral philosophy. Stanford Encyclopedia, Moral Naturalism. You can just Google oughts and it should come up pretty quickly. You do not need oughts for a normative theory of morality. No.
Okay. Zed is asking how you deny S5 if you don't know what S5 is.
Because I've looked into it before and concluded I rejected it, and I just forgot all of the things about it.
All right. Joe.
Troyer, I have a follow-up question.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, what's up? This is Fear Inoculum again. You said earlier
You're cutting out. You're cutting out.
Case against the existence of abstracta was a scientific hypothesis. God damn it!
No, we can hear you now, sort of.
Yes, scientific hypothesis against abstract. I think that it's reasonable to conclude its abstract objects are just a product of the brain.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, sorry about that. I'm driving. Abstracta are claimed to be necessary. That is to say, they exist in all possible worlds. Don't you think it's kind of queer that you would use an inductive hypothesis against a claim like that, Tom?
No, because
let me know what you think.
No, claims are just claims. I can claim magical pink pixies are necessary, and then you can say, well, no, I can just say, scientifically, we've seen no evidence of magical pink pixies. Does that mean that it's unreasonable to use that inductive argument against the deductive assertion that pixies are necessary? Well, no, obviously not. Assertions pose no evidence at all.
So what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at is, if the proponent of if the person like saying abstracta exists gives you a deductive argument, you straightforwardly can't use that because you would have to show that there's like a better argument that shows abstracta do not exist, or you'd have to show some sort of incoherence.
No, I would not. So the same
case, right?
The same
so
thing.
So what
would
I'm really
apply.
getting at is, do you have? Well, hold on, one second. One second. what I'm really getting at is, do you have anything against abstracta beyond the inductive case, or is it just the inductive case?
Well, again, so the first thing you said is no, you do not need to provide a better argument, as in the example I just gave. If you give a deductive argument for magical peak pixies, I can, again, just give an inductive argument that it's false. So deductive arguments don't in any way help your case or make it a stronger argument than an inductive argument. It's usually actually the other way around. So I don't need anything.
You don't think a deductive argument is...
What? You cut out. I don't think a deductive argument is... It's definitely not better. No, it's not better evidence.
Stronger than... You'd be responding to a deductive argument with an inductive argument. Concede if he wants to progress this further, he can.
Lots of
I think
breaking up there.
I think Sunseed had a follow up on this point. Maybe you can ask.
Well, I think the point that Pogan is messing up and doing so electronically is that you're having something that's a metaphysical claim, the existence of abstracta, which isn't something that you gather evidence for. It's something that you demonstrate via argument. Someone could claim that there are pixies and say there's evidence, and of course you can argue that there is no evidence against it, so they're disconfirmed. But that's not how people present the case for abstracta. They don't present it as something that you assess with evidence. They present it as something that you assess with arguments instead.
Right, I understand that, but the way they present it, no one cares. Like, you can present it in any way you want, but you still need some way to differentiate. Is this just an imaginary thing you've made up in your head, or does it correspond to reality? And to do that, you need that empirical verification. So you just presenting a deductive argument isn't evidence of anything. It's just, this is an idea in your head that you think is true. Congratulations. Until you can verify it with some kind of empirical data out in the world, or given instantiations of it in the world, it's just an idea in your head and nothing more.
So there's nothing you think you could there's no like metaphysical concept you hold to?
Reality is reality. Like, what? Other than that, I think not really.
Wait, you don't you don't think that, like, presumably you're a physicalist, right? You don't think physicalism is like a metaphysical claim?
No, it's purely inductive. Like, we don't conclude physical is the only stuff because of a deductive argument. It's purely induction.
Wait, you do know what metaphysics is, right?
Right, things beyond physics.
No. Metaphysics has to do with
the first
way...
fundamental principles of reality. Yes, I know what metaphysics is, but that doesn't help your case at all.
Then you
so everyone who is a metaphysical
claim.
Everyone who is an ontological or metaphysical physicalist does so based off of induction and nothing more. That's it. It's just here's the evidence we have.
But even if that was true, that was silly, right? But even though if that was true, right, that wouldn't be incompatible with it being a metaphysical claim or a metaphysical thesis, rather.
Right. So fallibilism is the position you can have knowledge without absolute certainty. So we use induction to make conclusions about metaphysics. Like,
what does that have to do with anything?
Let me explain it and don't interrupt, and maybe you'll find out. So most people conclude reality is physical, like metaphysical naturalism. Wait, stop. So most people conclude physicalism is just the result of what reality is because of induction. They make a metaphysical conclusion based off purely induction, and that's it. And you can do that, just like saying we're not in the matrix because I have hands, based on this position called fallibilism, which is the consensus in philosophy that you can have knowledge of like metaphysical fundamental nature of reality without certainty.
Right, I understand that. I probably know more on that topic. I probably know more on that topic than you, right? But I'm still not sure how that answers the question or answers my question, right? On when you say that, like, you only hold to one metaphysical view, that being reality, yet you say you're a physicalist, and physicalism being a metaphysical.
That was never a question you asked. So now that you've asked it, I can answer it. Again, I'm a methodological naturalist. I'm not a metaphysical naturalist. So I don't really care what the fundamental nature of reality is.
Well, physicalism is different than naturalism.
Physicalism, the position that mind is purely physical.
Right.
Yeah, so again,
problem isn't whether or not
physicalism
you care,
just
whether
based
or
off
not
of
you
induction.
think you can hold things metaphysically.
So again, I conclude the brain is physical based off of the evidence, which is all scientific induction, and that's perfectly reasonable.
That's fine, right? Well, that's fine, but that's not going to be incompatible, right? That's not going to be incompatible with it being like a metaphysical thesis.
I don't care. Like, none of this is relevant to your
claims that. Well, I'm just addressing your point when you say that you only hold to one metaphysical view, that being just that reality exists. And I'm saying that you can have theses
yes,
like
I never said you couldn't, so this isn't
naturalism and
relevant. I never said you
physicalism,
couldn't.
which would be a metaphysical thesis.
Which I never said you couldn't, so okay.
You did.
No, I didn't. I just said...
I asked you, and you... Well, that's fine, right? But do you take back your claim that you only hold to one metaphysical view then?
No, I didn't make that claim. I just said, here is one I hold to.
So you're not a physicalist then?
No, I'm a physicalist. So again, what you're just not understanding the point at all.
Point is, Tom, the point is that...
Thank you, whoever did that. Thank you.
So maybe you can explain to Tom, because I don't think Tom is having trouble understanding.
No, it's pretty simple. So reality is reality. That's the only assumption about the fundamental nature of reality I have at all. Everything else is just induction, and it's methodological purely, and that's it.
So I think the point that Yuri is trying to make is that there are different metaphysical theses that you seem to hold, including physicalism.
Right, and I've just corrected him on that. My positions are methodological physicalism, not metaphysical physicalism. So if you don't understand the difference...
Sorry.
You don't think metaphysical physicalism is...
Methodological physicalism is not the same as metaphysical physicalism.
Yeah, that's why I asked you if you think it's tenable or not, idiot. Come on, answer the question.
Okay, mute this kid, get him gone. I'm done with this kid. Bye-bye.
All right, so
bye-bye. Get rid of him. Get rid of him.
So by methodological physicalism, I take it to mean something like the only things we can verify are physical things?
Correct. That's methodological.
So you're not making the stronger claim that the only things that exist are physical things.
Right. As I said the entire time, the metaphysical position I have is reality, and I'm a physicalist in the methodological sense. So saying I'm a physicalist doesn't necessarily translate to metaphysical physicalist, does it? No, obviously. So I'm a methodological physicalist. There could absolutely be a soul. I'm not discounting the possibility with a deductive argument. It's definitely possible. There's just no evidence to support it.
Fair enough. It's just that when you say you're a physicalist, it's usually implied that you're talking about the metaphysical sense.
That's your assumption, not mine.
But
so
no, it's just about general usage. But
not really, no, not really.
Okay. I think Orson had a question.
Just real quick, I just think there's one thing that's interesting, though. Methodological physicalism isn't a view. He's confusing it with methodological naturalism. I just think that's funny. Just wanted to point that out.
Well, it's a similar idea.
Oh, so if you just Google it right now...
it isn't, right? Because Detroyer, you would agree, right, Detroyer, that you can be a physicalist, right? And not think that all things reduce to the physical. It's solely a view regarding the ontology of the mind, right?
Well, but that's...
Because I could be a physicalist and be a realist regarding properties. Right?
No, but physicalism can be used in different ways, right? You can use it as a thesis about the mind, or you can use it as a more general thesis about everything that exists.
In the literature, typically, he could mean that.
No, shut up.
Right?
Physicalism and its discontents. Carl Gilbert Barry Lauer, Philosophy, 2007. My primary goal will be to investigate whether methodological physicalists are correct and that their description claims are presently warranted. You're an idiot. This is actually used in the academic literature. You just don't know it.
Well, what is that supposed to mean?
It means the way I use the term is correct academically.
You have people in the literature who refer to things as
yes, that means I'm using the term
which I don't take to be
equivalently.
Really a view.
So it does. That's all it needs to be. This is a correct usage of the term. So let's move on. This is academic.
He's not using physicalism here in the philosophy of mind sense. It's just in the same way that someone says they're methodological naturalist. He's just saying the same thing about
so in the literature, right, and that would explain why in the literature, right, when you're talking about theories of mind, methodological physicalism isn't anything that you would ever hear of.
So no, because he's not using it as a thesis about the
right. No,
mind.
I understand what you're saying now.
Right.
Yeah, it's dumb.
It is true that this sort of view is usually stated as methodological naturalism, but it's the same idea or similar idea that he has in mind.
So I just gave a quote from an academic journal. If you just disagree, you're just an idiot. It's just as simple as that.
Right. There are some people that use the term. It's not. I was just making a general statement about when it's generally.
Sorry, I'm Richard Dawkins, and I'm an agnostic atheist.
I think so. I think we can move on. I think Orson had a question. Let me just.
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
Yeah. So thank you for coming. I just think I heard something that I thought was a little bit concerning, and from my interpretation of your position so far, sounds like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. So it seems to be the case that you want to say that everything is like verifiable inductively, and inductive reasoning is like superior to deductive reasoning. But you also want to hold to like these notions of logic, like classical logic and such. So my question is regarding the pink pixies in the sky. If you had a set of premises which you had good reason to believe are true, and then it had valid inference rules to get to the conclusion of pink pixies, would you say that it's false due to there being no inductive evidence?
I would say there's no reason to believe it's true about reality. It's true in our imagination based off of those things. But unless you mean by valid inference rules some empirical inference about the world, then it would be good evidence. But no, if it's just
in our head, be empirical.
So if it wouldn't be empirical, then no, there's no reason to believe they exist independent of our imagination.
So you would, so then the idea of like a valid inference rule being truth preserving, you would say that that's not true.
It's true in our imagination. So true again would be correspondence to reality. So if you want to actually make it correspond to reality, you need something to verify outside of our imagination. Just logic on its own is.
So then if you did have a set of, if you did have a set of premises and an argument that was presented to you with valid inference rules, which got to the pink pixies, you would have to be committed to the idea that the argument is not truth preserving.
It may or may not be. So that's not really correct. It's like, could it be true? Yes. May it be false? Yes. So,
but then,
for example, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Socrates is mortal. That seems like it would be a deductive truth-preserving argument, but it's possible that at some point not all men will be mortal. So it could be false. So until you have some kind of external verification for this fact, it's just valid, but not necessarily sound.
So it seems like you have some sort of, I'm trying to recap the contradiction after listening to you. I feel like I've identified a contradiction where what we mean, so you'd have to clarify away from this, because what I understand valid to be is truth preserving. So if you were to say the argument is valid, but the conclusion might not be true, then that's a contradiction in terms. How do you reconcile that?
Valid just means the conclusion follows from the premises. It doesn't mean the premises are true.
Exactly. Yeah, because valid actually means, like, the more strict definition is if the premises are true, then it's impossible for the conclusion to be false,
right?
Which is what we mean by truth preserving. So you can't have that notion with a valid argument and then say the conclusion is false.
Sure, if that's what you mean, yes, I would grant validity. I'd say it's valid, but I wouldn't say it's true, because again, true means corresponding to reality. So that's a separate thing. That's soundness.
If you take the premises to be true, then you should take the conclusion to be true, because you take it to be the case that it's impossible for the conclusion to be false whilst the premises are true.
Right, and I agree with that. The thing is, I would not accept the premises as being true, as in sound, purely by the structure of the argument.
But we were already saying in the hypothetical example that you'd have good reason to take these premises as true before you were presented the valid argument.
Well, that's the part where I said if it's empirical, that would be the only good reason to accept they're true. And if it's not empirical, then you don't have good reason to accept they're true.
So if you had a set of premises which justified deductively the notion of pink pixies, so long as the evidence is good for the premises, you'd agree that the evidence is good for the conclusion of pink pixies in the sky, right?
Again, the evidence would have to be empirical, independent of the argument. If it doesn't have that, it's just nothing.
For the premises.
Right.
So if the premises were something like the earth is round and the sky is blue, so long as somebody presented a deductively valid argument for pink pixies in the sky, I know how silly that sounds, but if there was something where you have evidence for normal things that we have like in day to day, and then we conclude something that we don't have any experience with, you would be fine with concluding is true then?
Maybe. Like, so if pink pixies exist, if you do the special pink pixie dance, gold bricks will appear in front of you, gold bricks appear in front of you, therefore pink pixies exist. That's a deductive argument. So it does happen, then yep, okay. That would be some evidence of pink pixies, yes. If you phrase it in a deductive way, I mean, I wouldn't accept it as being deductive, I'd just accept it as inductive evidence, but yes, that would be evidence.
Okay, that's a clarification I was after. Thank you.
All right. Was there someone else in the chat? I wasn't reading all the comments. Does someone else have a question for Tom? You can just ask in the chat if you want to be unmuted.
Troyer, what's the evidence for the number 2?
Oh no.
Right? There's got to be evidence for the existence of number 2, right?
Number 2 doesn't exist. It's a made-up concept. There's no evidence of it existing. It's just a language.
Oh, your name's Troyer?
Yep, it is now.
Well, I mean, this isn't a Q&A, so.
Oh, well, when's that going to happen? Because that would probably be a much more interesting Q&A.
I don't know. Oh, actually, Jovan did have a question earlier that I had skipped over. I think I'm going to try and find it. He has something about whether, yes, we can have reason to do things irrespective of our beliefs or desires. Can we have such reasons?
I don't know. Depends. You have to think about it. Like, I don't. Maybe there could be some kind of metaphysical reasons, possibly, that we just don't know about, and that could qualify. I have no idea. Maybe some third category of Platonic reason object. Maybe it's possible. I don't know.
I think NKS Live maybe is asking a question. Are you a socialist? If not, why?
No, I'm not a socialist. Socialism has not worked effectively in history. I think the biggest challenge with political systems is trying to get something that works to keep people motivated to keep doing stuff, which is usually selfishly motivated. So I think socialism is a great ideal if we could make people not selfish, but we can't, and so it doesn't work.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no further questions, may I ask about morality?
I'm okay with it.
Sure.
So I guess my goal would be to like explore what you mean by morality and like your view on it in total. So I think I heard something along the lines of you thinking that morality is whatever brings out the less imposition on will, something like that. Could you elaborate?
No. So imposition will is a conclusion. We look at moral intuition and moral progress. Those are the things that we describe as the moral phenomenon. And we're trying to figure out, well, what is causing these things? My hypothesis is that morality is in a higher order emergent property like fitness. So, for example, certain animals can survive in more environments than other animals. That's just an objective property they have. It's higher order emergent property. So I think morality is like that. And the description of morality is whatever involuntary impositions of will would be immoral. So that's just a description of the moral property, which is some higher order emergent property like fitness.
So just, I'm not sure this is what you're saying exactly. Are you saying that your morality view is descriptive, not prescriptive?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like a strange like definition of morality.
Yeah.
But I also heard
clarify,
that you said
there's again not
sure,
original by Modal, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Moral Naturalism. I'm pretty much just stealing stuff from there, so you can check them.
You know that fitness is a relative concept. Are you a moral relativist?
No, fitness isn't a relative concept.
Yes, it is. That's a mundane understanding of fitness. It's something is fit relative to the environment. Do you disagree with that?
So fitness is an organism that can survive in more environments. That's more fitness. It's not just a particular environment. So if you have an organism that can survive in all environments, it has a greater level of fitness than one that can survive in a particular kind of environment.
It's just relative. So you agree it's relative to the environment?
So again, an organism that could survive in all possible environments would make it have a greater level of fitness than one that can't.
Yeah, but wait. So it's relative to this environment. This organism is not fit.
It's not a brute fact on its own. It's just a description of the relationship between an organism and the environment. Yes, and morality is a description of the relationship between people in environments. This is not
exactly. So you're a moral relative.
The truth isn't relative. at all. It's
That's
true,
not what I was claiming.
independent. So relativism is the truth is relative, the truth of the claim. Property is a descriptive of different things. It doesn't make it relative. Like gravity is relative to the mass and objects of mass of certain objects. It doesn't make gravity relative. What you're saying is stupid. I froze again. No, sorry about that. I froze.
That doesn't
again.
make the thesis itself about what it's. Anyways.
So yeah, like there are.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Gravity isn't relative. Gravity is contingent on the mass of objects. Gravity isn't relative. So just describing facts of reality because they change based off other facts in reality doesn't make them relative. They're still facts of reality. Relativism is if the truth of the claim is relative, not if the thing itself is relative. So Earth has mass is an objective fact, even though its mass is relative to whichever biggest object is near.
Yeah, no one's disputing that the fact that there are properties isn't relative.
Okay.
The part about morality is whether or not like you ought like whether or not those facts like have any meaning, right? Do those facts give you an ought?
I already addressed that like many times. You don't need an ought for objective morality.
He appeals to the hypothetical imperative.
No, I don't appeal.
No.
I say oughts are a hypothetical imperative, but you do not need oughts for a model of objective morality. So I use
that's what I meant by appeals to that.
Okay.
Then what do you think you're talking about when you're talking about morality?
Again, I've already addressed this. You could just the definition of a normative theory of morality does not entail an ought. You do not need an ought. Google, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, moral naturalism, definition of normative morality. You don't need an ought. That's just your strange assumption.
What do you think? What do you think you're saying when you say imperative?
Imperative. That's the same as ought. It's a normative. You don't need an ought. Normative theories of modeling. You do not need an ought.
So when you say something is good, what follows from that? Should you do it or should you not do it?
Again, no oughts. So shoulds, oughts, those are all things you do not need for a normative theory.
It just doesn't sound like a theory of morality.
I
Morality
don't care
seems
about
like
your
it's
opinion.
implicit.
So just again, Google, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, published academic journal, definition of normative ethics does not entail ought. Go. Have fun.
How are you supposed to distinguish like morality simply from just like there just being properties that exist?
Morality is supposed to be one of the natural properties that do exist. Like it's not. It is one of them. What?
Yeah, but why do we call it morality and not just like properties?
The same reason we call gravity the stuff that falls, because we have this intuitive idea of morality, and we label these certain phenomenons like our moral intuition, and what do those moral intuitions correspond to? That's morality. Same with any physical concept.
Right, but when most people if you're trying to appeal to language and what most people intuitively think when they're talking about morality, when people talk about morality, they're just talking about like what you ought to do and ought not do. They're not just saying, "Hey,
no, the phenomenon
I
of
think
morality.
this bad."
The phenomenon of morality, the things we're talking about when we talk about morality, are moral intuition and moral progress. Those are the phenomenon of morality. Those are what we're talking about when we're talking about morality. And then how we interpret those things, one of the interpretations is oughts, and some of them don't entail oughts. So the question is what phenomenon describes or best explains the moral intuition and moral progress? That's morality.
So you're not a realist then?
No, I am a realist. Again, I've already covered this. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, normative theories of ethics do not require an ought. Moral naturalism is a type of moral realism which does not have oughts in it. Basic facts of philosophy, you can just Google those on your own. Just trying to refute. If you want to refute them, go for it. Not original to my position.
Aren't you implying that we ought to do something if it's progressive? If you're saying this is moral progress, we ought to do it?
No, it's just descriptive. It's saying like this world that has this feature of gay rights or whatever is morally superior to this world that does not have gay rights, but there's no ought there. It's just descriptive.
Yeah, can I? I'm really interested in, just real quick. I'm just really interested in this topic because I might not know much about metaphysics, meta ethics. Sorry, could I get like a source for that SCP article?
Yes, Google. Or do you want me to actually just link it to you? Because you literally, if you Google, it's the first thing that pops up.
Yeah, can you just because I can't find
moral naturalism.
Moral naturalism and the definition of normative morality. Those two things are two separate articles. Normative morality.
I feel like I'm.
Okay, well, there's just something strange that TJump said that moral naturalism is a thesis of morality that doesn't have oughts. That's not the case.
No, some models of it don't have oughts. So you can go down to Cornell realism. It's one of the things that lists it. It's not all of them.
Well, okay.
You can just control F oughts, and you should be able to find some that don't.
You're Cornell realist?
No, but it's very similar to my model.
Who proposed your model?
Me.
Yeah, but who are you?
What?
You're not. Well, you said you were Detroyer earlier, but Detroyer, do you hold to this view?
Me?
Yeah.
No. What?
I think he's trolling.
Okay,
he's just trolling now.
It just seems uninteresting for you to say, "Well, I came up with it," right? We want to understand it. You're not doing the greatest job of explaining.
You asked who said it, like who came up with it. I came up with it. I was literally just answering your question. Like,
yeah, I wanted to know who came up with it because you're not doing the greatest job of defending it. So maybe.
No, I did doing just fine. Now there are many aspects that are similar to other models, and you can look into those other models. It's much easier that way. I'm not going to try and defend all of it. Like, no, I'm stealing this aspect from them. Go look at them.
I'm waiting on 2 questions, by the way.
Yeah, just real quick. I'm looking through the Cornell realism article, and there's nothing that talks about it not holding to oughts. I'm doing even Control F and put in ought.
Stanford.
In fact, it says the opposite. It says like wrong actions ought to be discouraged and shunned, and right actions ought to be promoted and encouraged.
Something about sentences. It specifically
it seems
says
like when you say there's
that
moral progress,
there are ways to assess sentences without uses of oughts and get rid of them.
That's why I was asking for the direct quote. If you could pull that, not just have me just go and look, because I'm looking and there's nothing about that.
Yeah, it's definitely here.
If you could post it in debate text, that'd be cool.
Oh, it's in the one below it. Jackson moral functionalism. There are ways to sentences. All the FM4, FM3. It explains how you can have these sentences without any oughts. We're taking out the oughts just as descriptive properties.
Can you post the quote in general chat? Not general chat.
So TJump, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. No, just scroll down just the FM1s where it specifically explains that. It's like 4 or 5 paragraphs.
Okay, so this is going back to like an earlier part of the discussion, but I know you talk about this sometimes. So about the thing that you have about equality. So it seems that you take it as like an indispensable primitive.
Equality of what?
A equals A.
Okay.
Okay, so you take that as like an indispensable primitive, which I find kind of...
Well, no, I use it as a description. So reality exists, reality is reality, A equals A is a description of reality. So I don't take it as a primitive, it's just a description of reality.
What do you mean by like a description of reality?
There is a rock that describes some part of reality. So reality is reality. The law of identity just describes reality. It's not, the law of identity doesn't pre-exist to reality. It is a description of reality.
Okay, so right. So you're a conceptualist, and like you hold the law of identity as like a concept in your mind that describes reality.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So you don't think that like it's out there somewhere?
No, definitely not.
Right. That makes sense. But so then, I mean, why do you hold to it so fiercely when, like I said, I think, well, I didn't say this yet, but equality is not as primitive as, say, some of the other logical primitives, say like implication, because equality, at least in like first order logic, can be
Wait, let me
understood
so it's just a language. So I qualia have a qualia experience, and I'm going to make up a language to describe this implication, the law, the standard logic. I'm just using that as a language to describe this thing, and so I hold to it because it's just a way to describe this. It's just a language I've made up, essentially. Nothing more to it.
Sure, that's all reasonable. So, but okay, so are you a foundationalist then? Do you take these as like your foundations?
Maybe. I think qualia would be my foundation. I don't know anything beyond that. Probably.
And specifically your qualia.
Yes. No, yours. I found it from yours.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that makes a lot more sense because I don't know. It seems like you're so focused on equality, and I was just wondering why you had that kind of focus. But
yeah, it's just pragmatic. It's just the best way to express the points. It's just a language. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's all I wanted to ask.
I just want to explore immorality a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So I'm struggling to understand. I mean, so first of all, I'm struggling to understand what you actually mean by objective. What I typically hear objective to be is mind independent. So if there's like reasons or something that exists like external to our minds, that's not contingent upon like our mind changing or anything like that, then that's what I would typically understand to be objective.
Right.
However, you say everything is contingent upon your mind.
I didn't say that.
But then you say that we make up the laws of logic, for example, so they would be contingent upon minds.
The language we use is contingent upon minds, but since they're describing reality, it's like I can use the word tree to describe a tree, or I can use the Japanese word tree to describe a word tree. The tree is objectively true, independent of
That's
minds.
fine.
And so when we say A
That's
equals
good.
A, that's a description of reality. The reality is true, independent of minds. But the language we use isn't. So we could use a different logic, like many-valued logic, and maybe that one better describes reality. And so that one's true and not standard logic. I don't know.
But then I feel like you gave the wrong answer to Oasis' question of you being a conceptualist then, but I mean, maybe that's besides the point.
Wait,
I'm curious about like
mind.
hypothetical norms.
Why would that be an incorrect?
Because you're saying that it's a description of reality, and if logic, like the law of identity, is something that holds like external to your mind, then you wouldn't be a conceptualist.
Yeah, so it's possible that it's true, independent of minds. And it's possible many-valued logic is true, independent of minds, like it describes reality. One of them could be the case. I don't actually know. I consider logic to be just a part of our minds, and it is possible that some of our ideas correspond to reality while others don't. There's not actually a problem there. So the logic itself is just a part of our mind. And if it describes reality, then the reality exists independent of minds. So it's like if I said,
but it would be a property
exists,
of reality if it describes reality.
No. So if I say the rock exists, the sentence, the English words and letters doesn't actually exist anywhere. It's just a made up concept language. And then the concept is describing refers to a thing that exists, which is the physical rock. So when I say the law of identity A equals A, that doesn't exist. That's just a made up conceptual language that we have, but it refers to something that exists, which is reality itself. So that the logic is just, we made it up, but reality is there and it describes the reality.
But then it would be a property of reality if you were to deny, for example, the proposition, two propositions, like the rock is, 10 kilograms of the rock is not 10 kilograms. Like
it's not a property of reality. It's a description.
That they cannot both be true.
So it's not a property of reality. It's a description of a property of reality, which is reality is reality. It exists, essentially. So the logic isn't a property of reality. The logic is just descriptions of reality or whatever properties it has. Logic isn't a property.
Okay, that's fine. That's not the point I wanted. That's not the point I really wanted to pursue, but I don't particularly understand the distinction. But I wanted to ask about like hypothetical norms because I just wanted that firstly was to understand what you meant by objective, and I think you hold to like a similar standard of something being like external to us, like the external world, for example, being objective. So that's good. So you say hypothetical norms are objective.
What?
Is that true?
No. Like hypothetical imperatives? No.
So
Like, for example, if
it's something along the lines
it's wrong
of,
to eat babies or whatever. If I want to be immoral, well, then that hypothetical imperative would be to eat babies. But it's purely because I want to be immoral. So that's purely subjective. The hypothetical part is the want, what you want, your goals. But it's purely subjective. The hypothetical is not.
No,
Go ahead.
The hypothetical part, as far as I understand hypothetical norms, is not the want. The want is more like the which hypothetical norm you choose. The hypothetical norm is like the conditional. It's like the if then, which seems to hold independent of our minds, maybe.
I'm not sure what you mean. So, like, if I want to be immoral, then I would do immoral things. Like, sure.
Right. So that seems to be objective, but then also I haven't actually fully read up on like the objectivity of hypothetical norms to the point of where, because it'd be pretty obvious that something along the lines of like, if you want to be immoral, then you should do immoral things. Like, that seems to hold. But then you could say something along the lines of, if you want to be a good businessman, then you'd like negotiate aggressively or something like that.
Right.
But that wouldn't be so clear cut if it's objective and not subjective, the standard that we're using.
Right. So hypothetical imperatives are just, if you want something, you go get it. So if you want chocolate ice cream, you get chocolate ice cream. But if you want vanilla ice cream, you get vanilla ice cream. If you want to call that objective, I mean, okay, that doesn't relate to my model in any way, but the moral aspect to it isn't subjective. It's not related to the hypothetical imperative in any way.
Well, I was more curious of whether you thought those conditionals are objective or subjective.
I would say subjective, because I would just define it based on the wants. But if you want to define it just based off of the relation, then you could call the relations objective, maybe, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. I think there's good arguments to say they're objective, but like I said, I don't really know them. But I was more interested in your position, in the clarification, like where you stand. There's one more thing about hypothetical norms and the system of morality that you have. What guides which hypothetical norms we choose? Is it purely our desires, or is there any other more guiding principle as to which hypothetical norms?
I'm a judgment. So yeah, that would be purely internal. I think that our desires pretty much something in our brain and nothing else. I don't think there's any external judgment-based externalism where there's something outside of us causing us motivations to do things. No, I think it's just our brain's desires.
So you would say you're a moral objectivist because this idea of morality exists in reality, even if we weren't there.
Yep.
However, the way that we interact with this morality concept is subjective.
Yes. So we have an experience of morality, just like we have an experience of color, and that's subjective to how our brains work. But it is referring to something that does exist, like the objects, the photons or whatever. So there is a thing in reality that exists independent of our opinion, and our experience of it is purely subjective. Like moral intuition and moral progress are definitely subjective. We can't prove they're corresponding to an objective feature of reality, at least not yet. So yes, there is a subjective epistemological knowledge of it, and then there's of an objective thing that exists in the world is my model.
Okay, that's all good. I'm still left not fully understanding what is this objective morality. You described it as some sort of moral progress and of intuition.
Oh no, those are the things, the phenomenon of morality we're trying to explain. Like if you're trying to explain gravity, stuff falls. We see stuff falling, and we're trying to explain, well, what is that? Moral intuition, moral progress is just the phenomenon that we see falling. We're saying, well, what is describing that? And my conclusion is that, well, if we plot all of the information out, kind of like calculate the rate of falling or whatever, we get this principle, which is no involuntary imposition of will, or involuntary imposition of will is bad. And that principle describes whatever it is that is the ontology of morality, just like F equals ma or whatever. So, the gravitational thing describes the ontology of whatever gravity is doing.
Is it the case that all involuntary imposition of wills are bad?
Yes, from my perspective.
So even if an involuntary imposition of will can save someone from a large amount of suffering or death, you would still say that that's a bad thing to do, even if it saves them.
Yes, if they don't want the involuntary imposition and they would prefer the suffering, then yes, it would be immoral to force them away from it.
For example, you think it's ethical to let people commit suicide then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That was more my curiosities, and thank you for answering. But I pass the mic to whoever.
Well, actually, that was probably the last one I have to do because I have another debate right now, a modern day debate. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun, and I will see you guys later.
All right.
Yeah, thanks
for coming.
Well, hopefully you won't do so bad in that one too.